Amazing.
Brandon, is the Zoom meeting going yet?
It is. Yep. I saw you just try to get in. You should have been admitted now.
I'm not, oh, here it goes.
Maybe do a background.
There we
check
are,
on you first.
okay.
I was gonna say.
Verify your IP address and all that stuff.
Mute yourself.
Yes.
Where, here?
Down
There?
here. Yep.
Where's the mute? There? Am I muted?
You're mute.
Okay, thank you. I needed that help. Okay, what time is it? I guess we better start. Is this my mic?
Everyone you want.
There you are, huh? Okay, looks like we'll get the meeting going here. I want to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Carmel-by-the-Sea Planning Commission. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Allen,
Here.
Commissioner Delbs,
Here.
Commissioner Karpetkov,
Here.
Commissioner Locke. Here. Chair LePage.
Here, thank you. Okay, the first item on our agenda today is the public appearances. Anybody from the public can speak to the Planning Commission at this time on matters of municipal concern. These matters are not on our agenda, but they may be agendized at a future date. So anybody that'd like to come forward and speak to the Planning Commission about any matters of municipal concern which are not on our agenda tonight can do so at this time. Okay, I don't see anybody in the chambers.
Chair LePage.
Oh, we have one? Who's somebody's? Oh, we're on the phone. Okay, hang on a minute here. I got to get over to the Zoom. Here we go. There we go. All right. Was that Michael McWalters?
Yes, Chair LePage, how are you?
Good. Okay, good. Good to hear from you. All right, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair LePage, and good afternoon, Commissioners. I was reading the Carmelunderground.org website today. I encourage everyone listening to this to study its articles because it's pertinent as we continue to write our telecom wireless ordinance.
Michael, I'm so
excellent
sorry to interrupt
article.
you. Michael, could you get a little bit closer to your microphone or whatever device you're speaking from? It's exceptionally difficult to hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, I apologize for that.
Yeah, please go ahead and start over. I'm sorry to interrupt. We couldn't hear you.
Okay. Let me start again, and please interrupt me if I can't be heard. I was reading the Carmelunderground.org website today, and I encourage everyone listening to this to study its articles because as we write our telecom wireless ordinance, there's an especially excellent article reprinted from Scientific American titled, "We Have No Reason to Believe 5G is Safe." And within the article, the link to 5G appeal. And the 5G appeal was put together by 430 scientists in the European Union in 2017, scientists and doctors who are urgently calling for the European Union to halt the rollout of 5G due to serious health effects from this new technology. 5G will substantially increase exposure to radio frequency electronic radiation on top of the already 2G, 3G, 4G, and Wi-Fi telecommunications already in place. And the 430 scientists have reported numerous in recent scientific publications. They've shown that electromagnetic frequency affects living organisms at levels well below international and national guidelines. And the effects include increased cancer risk, cellular stress, increase in harmful free radicals, genetic damages, structural and functional changes of the reproductive system, learning and memory deficits, neurological disorders, and negative impacts on general well-being in humans. 30% of our residents are electromagnetically sensitive to wireless radiation, so I think it's incumbent upon us to include the following statement in our wireless ordinance. 30% of our residents are electromagnetically sensitive to wireless radiation. Therefore, we are not allowing 5G technology or any G technology to be installed in our 1 square mile village. And instead, we will install fiber optic. Thank you, Chair LePage. Thank you, Director Swanson. Thank you, Commissioners. I hope this came through clearly.
Thank you for your comments, Michael. Okay, is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the Planning Commission at this time regarding matters of municipal concern which are not on our agenda tonight? Okay, I don't see any hands going up. Nobody in the chamber coming forward, so go back to our agenda. Okay, the next item on our agenda are announcements. I want to announce tonight that we have a new planning commissioner. It's Stefan Karpoff?
Yes.
Okay. I tried to convince him to change his name to Smith, but I'm going to butcher his name for a while. But anyway, we're really happy to have Stefan with us to join us. Stefan replaced Chris Bolton, who was a great planning commissioner. He had some personal things that he had to take care of, so he had to step down. Chris was really a great member of the Planning Commission. I know that I always valued his comments. He really added a lot to the discussion, and he was very fair, very well prepared. And during COVID, when we had our Zoom meetings, his cat contributed a lot too. He always walked back and forth across the screen. It's kind of like a big question mark, his tail. So we're like, what are we doing here? But yeah, we're going to miss Chris, and but we're very happy to have Stefan with us. So just want to let all you know about that tonight. Okay, so the next item on our agenda, did you want to say something, Stefan? Or? Okay. The next item on our agenda tonight is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine in nature, do not require discussion unless members of the public or the commission want to have some questions or want them pulled. Typically, they are passed in with one motion. So we have 3 items on the consent agenda tonight. We have our monthly activity report. This is the report which shows all the activity in the planning and building department. We have the item 2 is adoption of the minutes from our regular December 14th meeting. And then the item number 3 is the planning commission meetings from the regular May 10th meeting. So is any of the commissioners have any questions or corrections?
No.
Is there anyone from the public has any questions regarding any of these items? Okay, in that case, I will make a motion that we accept the items presented in the complete consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Delves?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkov? Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes, motion is carried. Okay, that moves on to the public hearings this evening. The first item, number 4 on our agenda, is a administration, was it discretion? Determination, excuse me, there it is. Consideration of administrative determination. This is AD 23-155. This is for Wandering Tours, the applicant regarding a business license application for wine walking tours, and this is clarification on the determination for a permit. Can we have staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to turn this over to Saray, who's going to give you the presentation, but I just wanted to do a brief introduction for you all and for the public, because this is something that we don't see here very often. So the code talks about administrative determinations being something that the planning department can elevate to the planning commission. In this case, we felt that there's an item before you that doesn't fit neatly in a box and is adjacent to what we would consider be policy or precedent setting. So in this case, what we're asking you to do is take a listen to the presentation and consider what you want us to do. We do not have a resolution for you tonight. This is going to be a two-step process, administrative determinations, because every decision of the Planning Commission does need a resolution. So once you decide how you want to act on this item, we will return next month with a resolution that captures all of the findings and decisions that you talk about this evening. So think of tonight as a resolution of intent. You will be asking you to tell us where you want to go with this and what findings you would like to make. And then we will return next month with a formal resolution for you to vote on and adopt. So with that, I'll turn it over to Saray for his wonderful presentation.
Oh, thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Chair. So this is an administrative determination, and it's considering the consideration is regarding the business license application for the establishment of a walking tour of a wine tasting shop in Carmel. And this is not clearly regulated in the city zone, and nor is it fits squarely in the definition of a walking tour according to our municipal code. Little background on the, thank you. Little background on the wandering tour. The applicant, they're proposing again for wine tasting shop and tour of the wine tasting shop in the central commercial, as well as a service commercial district. And they are proposing to educate the customers about the local wines in Monterey, and they are limiting it to 12 people, and they're proposing to visit only 3 shops per tour, and the duration is going to be about 2.5 to 3 hours, and no tours on Sundays, and their meeting place is going to be at the Sunset Center parking lot. And code defines walking tour as a tour service to individuals or group as a means of transmitting information associated with sighted visit. And the common topics for walking tour are architecture, natural history, cultural events of that nature. And again, in terms of our code defining alcohol and wine tasting, it has a lot of restriction, and some of them are stated right here. For example, our code only allows only 3 drinking places in Carmel, and in terms of wine tasting shop, they're allowed to only serve about 2 ounces per serving. And so the central sort of issue for Planning Commission to consider is that if the normally the walking tours have traditionally been like a non-profit or a commercial operator giving a guided tour to non-retail places, and this particular tour is proposing a walking tour to a retail space, which is a wine tasting shop. And as it's defined in our definition, it says common topics tend to be places like architecture and environment, cultural, and events. And so the Planning Commission is considering, is a walking tour of a commercial business like a wine tasting shop, is it allowed? And if yes, can the use be approved with solely a business license like a typical walking tour, or additional entitlements such as a use permit also required? And if a use permit is required, what would be the appropriate use classification under Chapter 17.14.030? And this is a matrix that shows a little bit of the classification under this chapter. And as you can see, all the drinking places are allowed only in the central commercial and service commercial area, and they also require a conditional use permit. But on the other hand, a walking tour is allowed in all the commercial district, and they do not need a conditional use permit. So if the Planning Commission seeks to approve this proposed business, staff recommends special condition of approval, and some of them have been stated. And the more salient one is that the applicant should add the city of Carmel-by-the-Sea, its elected officials, agents, and employees as additionally insured under this insurance policy. So the staff recommends to provide a formal determination on whether a walking tour of a wine tasting shop may be allowed the commercial zone district in Carmel, and if any, what type of permit should be required. And this concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, either I or Brandon would be happy to answer.
Okay, are there any questions for staff?
Yeah, I've got one. So I'm aware that there are food tours here, which is similar, no alcohol. Well, actually, there probably is involved. But also there are sommeliers from all over the world who do Monterey County tours, Napa tours, et cetera. And in that example, do they need a business license? Do they need a permit? I mean, we probably don't even know they're there.
So yeah, you're right. Excuse me, sir.
Sure,
Okay, so
absolutely.
you're right. We probably don't know that they're there, and the difference here is that this tour is proposing to have a physical business in town, so they'd have a place of business where they're conducting their office business from. As Saray mentioned in his presentation, they wouldn't be convening the tours there. They'd be convening, at the parking lot. But that's the difference there. Those places you're talking about, either we don't know about them or they just come in and get an in and about business license, which is, a temporary kind of just coming through town sort of thing. But we probably don't know about most of them.
Thank you.
Yep.
So at this time, there are no business licenses for this type of business?
That's correct. For this one specifically, as Commissioner Delves pointed out, we do have some food tours that have come through, and certainly I would imagine people are having a cocktail or a glass of beer or wine at those food tours. But because this one is explicitly about and solely about wine tours, drinking wine at multiple stops, and frankly, given the city's interesting relationship with alcohol throughout the years, we have very specific regulations that Saray talked about with respect to wine tasting rooms, the number of bars we have. We felt that it was more appropriate for this to be a planning commission decision.
I have a question.
Yeah, question?
I'm sorry, what were the hours and times again?
The walking tour, it's Monday through Saturday. It's from 6, I believe it's,
Monday through Saturday is 9 to 5, and then,
Oh, hold on just 1 second, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're just doing staff presentation right now.
yeah.
it's 9 to 5,
Okay.
and Sundays from 9 to 2.
But that's their proposed time,
They're
Saray?
not, their proposed time is, they're not having any tours on Sundays, but the other days, they're going to be following.
So they
what
would
the-
have several each day then?
Yeah, that's what they're proposing.
And we'll give the applicant a chance because they may
Gotcha.
talk about the number, but what
Okay.
Saray's outlining here is that our code does currently put a limitation on the time for any walking tour, whether that's a walking tour to walk around and look at flowers or a walking tour for wine.
Okay.
That limitation is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So are there any more questions for staff from the commissioners?
I have a question about the logistics of the whole thing. I love wine tasting and I know how it works, so I'd like to understand how this multi-location tasting is going to work. Usually, the wine tastings room, they offer 5 types of wine. Here we're talking about 2 or 3. Is that correct?
They're going to 3 different shops per tour.
But how many tastings per shop?
They haven't specified that.
Saray, I'm sorry to interrupt.
So I'm sorry, ma'am, just hold on a second,
Just a moment,
please.
we'll be opening it up to the public for comments. I assume the applicant's speaking, but just give us a moment, we'll get to you. Go ahead.
So the first concern is that if you have 5 tastings per shop, we're looking at 15 different types of wine in 3 shops. That's quite a lot. The second concern is people usually buy bottles with wine in the wine shops. So are we saying now that they will be walking around the streets with multiple bottles of wine? Is that part of the experience? We would like to understand how it's going to feel.
Well, these are good questions, but we'll bring those up during our discussion. Right now, we're just posing questions to staff regarding the report. So we'll get into those specifics a little more, but those are good questions. Just hang on to those. Yeah. So any other questions for staff from the commissioners? Okay. All right. So at this time, I'm going to invite the applicant to speak to us about this application. I got to get. I assume they're going to zoom in.
I think that was the applicant.
Yeah.
We
I think so
we're
you want to identify yourself and speak to us about your application?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, council members. My name's Louise Bristow. I'm one of the co-owners of Wandering Tours. With me here is Thomas Eberts, also one of the co-owners of Wandering Tours. And we're appreciative of the chance to talk to you all today. We wanted to offer a couple of points of clarification to speak to the questions that have been raised here. So first of all, we just kind of like to contextualize that the proposal is not specifically a walking tour of tasting rooms. It is much more of an immersive and educational tour of Carmel and its, you know, gastronomic businesses, its historical context, its artistic context, and then peppered into that tour are 3 stops at hand-selected tasting rooms. And to answer the question about how many tastings happen in each of those rooms, we are proposing to stop at 3 tasting rooms and have 2 to 3 2-ounce pours in each of those tasting rooms. So for most of the tasting rooms in town, based on our experience, those tastings are 4 to 5 pours of 2 ounces each. We are stopping and pausing for 20, maybe 30 minutes maximum in each of these 3 tasting rooms. And we will be doing 2 to 3 2-ounce pours in each of those tasting rooms. So for context, that would be less than 2 complete wine tastings as part of our tour. Just to answer the question as well of hours of operation and how many tours we are proposing, we are currently looking at only 1 tour per day. We are specifically targeting this to meet around 1 o'clock in the afternoon at the Sunset Center, so specifically after lunchtime to allow people to eat their lunch. And then we would conclude the tour around 4 or 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon. So just 1 tour per day. And at the moment, Sunday is tabled because of the restricted hours. We're well aware of the city regulations about concluding tours before 2 o'clock. So at this time, we are not proposing to do tours on Sunday. If potentially we did that, we would consider an abridged version of that tour, which potentially would take 2 hours rather than 2.5 to 3. I think what we'd also like to express to the members of the Planning Commission here is that we really want to help educate visitors to Carmel about the history of the city itself, of the winemaking in the region, about the individuality of winemaking in Monterey County, what makes it such a great region for winemaking. We see this very much as a more in-depth educational tour for people. So, you know, when people typically go to wine tastings in town, there's limited time that they spend with the sommeliers kind of learning about the different wines in the region. We intend to spend our time deep diving specifically with the hope that we can leave our guests with a much deeper understanding of Carmel, Monterey County, and the history it has. And if the Planning Commission members have managed to have some time to take a look at our presentation, you'll be able to see the route that we are proposing in there. So on top of the 3 tasting rooms that we're proposing to visit, there's also a good amount of time on our tour dedicated to explaining the charm and the history of Carmel. You know, as residents of the city ourselves, we're very passionate about trying to explain that history and charm to people and to help make visitors to Carmel feel like they have a deeper connection with the city. So that's what we're aiming for with the tour.
Okay, are there any questions for the applicant?
Nope.
Commissioner Crawford, did you have some more questions for the applicant?
A question about the timing. Usually it takes a while to do a good tour, right? A good tasting, because you talk to people, you want to understand where the wine is coming from, what's happening. You know, you want to learn about the history, the winemaker.
Yes.
So you're saying 2.5 hours for the entire tour. If you do 3 stops, each stop half an hour to 45 minutes, how much time are you allocating for Carmel history?
It would be more like 20 to 30 minutes in each of the wine tasting rooms. And our tour guide would also act as a sommelier on the tour. So the route, for example, will meet at Sunset Center. It will take our guests across to Devendorf Park. And that's, where we sort of start the story of Carmel and explain some of the history of the winemaking in the region. There will be a lot of preemptive education on the way to the first tasting room. And by the time guests arrive at the first tasting room, the wine tasting will be set out for them. So yes, typically you might be, 45 minutes if you were doing a standard guest walk-in to any tasting room. We are deliberately making that much shorter and using the walking time between those different venues to help add to the depth of education that we give to our guests as they walk around the town.
Yeah, one other note on that is the tastings are actually like abbreviated because we're only going to do 2 or 3 wines per stop. Every wine tasting stop every morning we'll know exactly how many people are coming on the tour, along with the rough timing of when, and they'll be prepared and ready for us. So we do believe we can go in and out of each tasting room within 20 to 30 minutes at the most.
Go ahead. Do you have a question, Commissioner Allen? Go ahead.
I just wanted to know, is it always the same wineries?
The plan initially would be to launch with 3 tasting room partners, and they would stay the same in the short term. I think, our hope is that over time, if the business is successful and the customers are enjoying their visits and we build repeat business, then we would look to expand the breadth of partners that we have in the town. But initially, we would be looking to follow the same route each time.
And we currently have not signed on any wine partner tasting rooms yet, as obviously we wanted to make sure that we got through the Planning Commission and the license first.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a question. Do you have the participants sign a release of waiver and assumption of risk agreement?
They will.
Yes, they will,
So
definitely.
each participant will sign that?
Yeah, that will be part of the booking process when
Thank
they
you.
submit their information online.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Nope. Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, I'll open it up to the public for their comments. Anyone from the public would like to address the Planning Commission regarding this application, come forward this time. Before we do that, though, I should have said this before. In the public hearings, typically, I allow 5 minutes for the applicant to make their presentation. The public has 3 minutes to make their comments. If necessary, if the applicant needs to have a rebuttal time for comments from the public, I allow 3 minutes for that. And so I just wanted to get that out so everybody knows how we're operating here. So would anybody from the public like to come forward and speak to the Planning Commission at this time regarding this application? Don't see anybody in the chambers, anybody online? No hands going up?
I don't see any hands, Mr. Chair. I think you're in good shape.
Look good, okay. All right, then nobody wants to speak to us about that, so I'm going to close it, open up to the public comments, open up to the commissioners for their comments. Commissioner Locke, you're looking at me like you got something to say. Go for it.
Yeah, I'll start. First of all, I want to thank staff for bringing this to the Planning Commission. I think you did the appropriate thing. And I personally think that this is not any different than doing an olive oil tour or a cookie tour or, going and having different tastes of something. I think it's very reasonable. And I'm really happy to see the Monterey County wine being focused on as part of this proposal. I think that the applicant has proposed doing the tour so that they can also tell people about what our town's all about. And I think that's appropriate. I don't see that there's a real concern about going to 3 tasting rooms, having 3 tastes, and especially over 2 to 3 hours, it's plenty of time. I do just want to also comment that while staff's presentation and the staff report talks about the common types of walking tours, this is a walking tour, and it's just an uncommon walking tour in my mind. So I'm totally supportive of this. I would also like to include an additional condition when we get to that point on the maximum size of the walking group if we're moving forward with that. But I don't have any other comments.
So do you think this should be a conditional use permit or just a permit that can be issued by the city?
I think this is just a regular permit.
Okay, all right. Okay, Commissioner Allen, you want?
So, Mr. Chair, if I could, I'm sorry to
Go ahead.
interrupt. So just for the sake of clarification, so a traditional walking tour, like if it was a historical buildings of the city of Carmel-by-the-Sea, it actually wouldn't be any sort of permit at all. It would just be a business license. So that would be, if the commission felt that that was appropriate here, that's the direction we'd
That
look
would be
for,
the
is to just
recommendation.
issue it as a business license like any other typical walking tour.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Allen, go ahead.
Yeah, so I wish we would have gotten a chance to hear from people. I have a feeling that we'll have a split reaction to this. I have a feeling that some people will, especially historians, will want to limit this. And then on the flip side, I think a lot of people will consider this to be a good addition. So as far as I'm concerned, I feel very similar to Commissioner Locke. I think it's a fun addition, and actually more of these types of things within the city seem like they would be beneficial to both residents and tourists. So, so highlighting the local businesses and understanding the history, I like it.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. Commissioner Dels?
Not much to add. I'm fully supportive of this, just as a business license, Brandon, that would not need to be coming to us again in the future. I think we should be doing everything we can to encourage local entrepreneurs. These people clearly are entrepreneurial. We need more of that, not less. And the Monterey wine scene is growing. It's on the map in a big way, and that's part of our culture now. And for entrepreneurs to be part of that is fabulous. Thanks.
And do you feel this needs to be just a business permit or a conditional use permit?
Just a business permit license.
Okay, thank you. And I didn't ask you, Commissioner Allen, you?
Yeah, I feel business permit would be adequate. And then I forgot to mention, I took something similar to this tour at Pike's Market up in Seattle, and it was really fun, so.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Garkopoff, would you have some comments?
Yes, I would support the idea for a business permit. I would like to understand a little bit better how it's going to work in terms of which locations will be involved, for example, and how is that route going to combine the historic part of Carmel with the wine tasting. I think that was my comment.
Okay, maybe the applicant, when they come back for the final reading, can provide a little more detail on that. I approach this by reading the existing ordinance and looking to see if there was any areas that didn't support this. And it seemed to me, I think staff was correct in bringing this to the Planning Commission. Alcohol has been a contentious issue in the city. We had multiple meetings and workshops about the wine tasting rooms, come up with a policy that worked for the community. And this is kind of an extension of that, but the ordinance, as it stands now, does not prohibit commercial activity. In fact, it has a definition of commercial walking tours. It just says means a walking tour for which a fee or other remuneration is charged. This certainly fits that model. And with regards to purchasing thing, we have a policy in here, or a statement of condition that says no retail sales shall be conducted as part of any walking tour except as allowed within any fixed place of business license for such use. So if they went in, did wine tasting, they can buy bottles of wine. My main concern about this is that the safety of the participants and the community, because obviously the use of alcohol is always a concern. And so that's why I asked the applicants if they had going to have a liability waiver signed by each individual, And the city obviously is going to have a condition here that they have to be included on the liability policy of the business. And I think that, obviously, I think the city attorney is going to look that over and make sure that it's adequate, because, the people are parking, and I know most people drink responsibly, but some people don't. And also, you have situations where a person might start the tour on an empty stomach, and if they're even tasting, 2 ounces of wine at 3 locations, that's enough to start to have an effect on your driving, and that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. So that's my only concern about that. Other than that, it seems that this can be handled as a business permit. I'm not really sure about which part, was that question you asked about which part of the definition it comes under? Was that the?
We actually don't need that answer. If
You
the,
don't need
if
that
the
right
planning
now?
commission feels this is
Good.
approvable with a business license, then you don't have to
Wasn't
choose a
prepared to
use
make that.
permit. Yeah, you don't have to choose a use permit category.
All
So
right,
what we'll do
okay.
is, if I might, what we'll do is we will still return with a resolution, because as I said, this is somewhat policy and precedent setting. The resolutions, as we all know, are essentially memorializing the words and the actions of the planning commission. So we'll put recitals in there about what you've said today, why you got to this decision, and the fact that a walking tour to visit wine tasting shops can be approved with a business license. We will include with this one the conditions of approval, and then we'll use those moving forward as standard conditions. And so those can be modified at the next hearing. If there's a condition we put on that you think needs to be strengthened, or is too strict, or we're missing something, you can let us know at the next hearing.
Okay, and I want to remind everyone that there will be another public hearing on this, so there'll be opportunity for more comments from the public, or even the wine tasting rooms in town. It'd be nice to get maybe some, I know they have don't they have an association or some type of a, yeah, it might be good if they were involved in this, or at least notified, formally notified, so we might get some feedback from them. So this doesn't require a resolution, no motion.
You do not have to vote. I feel like we've got a consensus.
Okay, so you have everything you need to, okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you, applicants. So we appreciate your comments on this. All right. We will continue with the public hearings. Commissioner Allen has to recuse herself from the next item on the public hearing. This is a design study. It's the Newt project. It is DS 22191. It's consideration of a revised concept design study application for the demolition of more than 50% of the exterior walls, single-story residence, and construction of a 2-story residence located on the northwest corner of Carpenter Street and 4th Avenue in the R1 district. The staff report, please.
Sebastian, can we have the Zoom interface back on our screen for a second, please? Thank you.
All right, well, good afternoon, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. The item before you is a revised concept design study for the Newt property. So the property is located at the northwest corner of Carpenter and 4th. The applicant is proposing a substantial remodel. It meets the zoning code definition of a demolition, even though portions of the residence are proposed to be retained. The property is a standard 4,000 square foot lot. The existing home is a little over 1,100 square feet. It's a single story, and it has a detached garage to the west. So the applicant is proposing a 2-story residence, so additions to the existing home. The new home would be almost 1,600 square feet with a 200 square foot attached garage. So the Planning Commission did see this project back in November. In November, the proposed garage was detached from the residence. It has now been attached as part of the design revisions. The project also includes a potential 2-story plate height variance at the northwest corner of the residence, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later in the presentation. So again, in November, the commission did review a concept design for this project. The concept was continued with direction to the applicant to redesign the project to eliminate solar and privacy impacts to the neighbor to the north. The project was scheduled for revised concept review last month, but unfortunately we had to continue the item due to a lack of a quorum. So we are here this evening. I'm going to go through a summary of the design revisions that have been made since November. Briefly, they include shifting the second story both to the south and west, eliminating the windows on the north elevation, reducing the depth of the eaves, and then also eliminating some skylights that were facing Carpenter. So first, the major design change was shifting the second floor 5 feet to the west. And so this graphic shows a comparison of the concept from November. I've added the red lines just so that you can kind of see the change in where the second story mass has been shifted. So at the top is the November concept design, the bottom is the revised design, and you can see that mass shifting over to the right-hand side there. Also, you'll notice the windows on the north elevation have been eliminated with the exception of a window on the first floor. And then also on the left-hand side, as we saw on site today at the tour, the orange netting represents the November concept, the yellow netting represents the revision, and you can see that shift in the photo on the left as well. And this picture was taken from the kitchen of the neighbor to the north. So again, the detached garage has now been attached to the residence. And again, you can see in this elevation comparison, this is the 4th Avenue elevation, that shift again in the second floor, 5 feet to the west. And then also just a note that the internal plate heights proposed are 8 feet on the first floor, 7 feet 6 inches on the second floor. And the applicant is actually looking at maybe reducing that plate height further on the second floor. So this is a comparison of the west elevation. This shows the shift of the second story to the south. So again, the initial concept is on top. So on the graphic on the bottom, you can see on the left-hand side how that mass is shifted over to the right. Also, you can see in this comparison how the eave depth has been reduced. It's now proposed at 6 inches, and this is all done to improve the solar gain for the neighbor to the north. The windows that were on the north elevation have been shifted over to the west elevation, so you can see that on this slide as well. The photo on the left, again, shows the netting. Again, this picture was taken from the north neighbor's side yard. And then lastly, this is the east elevation, which faces Carpenter. Here you can see the 3 skylights have been removed. And again, you can also see that shift to the south in this graphic as well as the reduced eave depth. So the concerns that we discussed back in November included privacy, views, as well as solar impacts. With respect to views, there is a water view from the upstairs bedroom. That's shown in the photograph here on the right, again taken from the north neighbor's house. You can see in the photo how the yellow netting has represents that shift of 5 feet to the west. So it does open up the view, but doesn't quite capture the existing water view that is currently there. This is a zoomed in version of that water view, and then again, just to show that shift in the story poles. So the view cone opened up. The graphic on the left in the orange is the additional view that was gained by shifting that mass to the west. but it didn't quite restore that view of the water. So with respect to solar access, our general plan, our residential design guidelines, and our municipal code do not provide an objective standard by which to measure solar impacts. So we rely on the guidelines that are set forth, which are more subjective. However, the changes that the applicant has made did improve access to light, specifically in March and September. There is more solar gain during those months on the first floor. So certainly shifting to the south and the west and reducing the eave depth did improve the solar situation for the north neighbor. This is just another rendering that shows the winter solstice at 1 p.m., which is when the project would cast the most shadow. Basically showing that the project would still allow for light up at the second floor, as well as partial in the kitchen and almost full in that front living room. So with respect to the plate height, originally a plate height variance was sought for the southwest corner of the residence, which is identified with the red circle. Due to the revisions that have been made to the project, that is no longer an issue. However, we do have a slight overage on the plate height, which is represented by the green circle at the northwest corner now of the residence. So the variance is still potentially a request as part of this project. It would be 6 inches versus previously it was over a foot. However, the applicant has been exploring some additional design revisions that would eliminate the need for the plate height variance. And so the next couple slides, I'm gonna kind of walk through those design revisions. They weren't included in your packet, but you do have a hard copy in front of you of these graphics. So by shifting the garage to the north, this would effectively eliminate the need for a plate height variance at that northwest corner. This would not impact any of the solar gains that have been obtained through the other design revisions. So that we were calling option B. So the original concept is the garage projecting off of that south elevation. Option C also eliminates the need for a plate height variance, but it shifts the second story mass back towards the north neighbor. So originally the mass was pulled to the south to achieve some solar gain. Under option C, it's pulled back to the north to improve a portion of the view. So on this graphic, you can see the red line in the view cone is the additional view that would be gained if that second story mass was shifted back to the north. So there's a little bit of sort of give and take there. The applicant can improve the view situation, but it would have the effect of taking away some of that solar gain that's been achieved. So staff's recommendation is based on the plans that were in your packet. And we are recommending that you accept the concept design with conditions. Condition number 1, staff was recommending that the second story be shifted an additional 1 foot 2 inches to the west. That would put the 2-story mass right at the required setback. And the reason for making this recommendation was, again, trying to improve maintaining as much of that existing water view as possible. The applicant has indicated that that's not a desirable option, that they feel like they've shifted it as far west as they can without interfering with the Monterey cypress tree that is in the rear yard. So that's something for the commission to discuss. Otherwise, they are working towards bringing that 2-story plate height into compliance and feel confident that they can do that with the revisions proposed. So with that, I'll end my presentation and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, are there questions for the staff from the commissioners? Mr. Locke, Mr. Dels,
Yeah,
Mr. Carp?
Marnie, I've got one.
Okay.
In your write-up, I'll just quote it. On the east front elevation, the applicant proposes to expand the first floor building footprint towards 4th Avenue. However, this pushes the stairs leading up into the porch, into the street side yard setback, et cetera. Can you explain that?
Yes, so the east side is actually Carpenter, so it sounds like there might be, I might have maybe misspoke in that statement.
No, because technically it's also the front, even though it's not the front. Right?
Okay. So yes,
But that's
in
to Carpenter,
shifting
okay.
that two-story building mass away from the north neighbor, so shifting that south, it also pushed the front entry out as well into the side yard setback. So I had discussed with the applicant potentially wrapping that into a variance request. However, with the additional design revisions that have been done, they may be able to reconfigure that front porch so as to not have to request that variance. But there is a slight encroachment of those steps into that setback.
I guess I'm not, what would have been accomplished in terms of solar and view if we would allow that variance?
So allowing the variance of the front steps, it certainly would facilitate maintaining those gains that they've achieved with this revised design.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions for staff?
I have a question.
You have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah. Marnie, when, on the revised plan, is the finished floor a little bit higher than the previous plan that we looked at?
My understanding is that it's maintaining the existing condition. So they're carrying the existing finished floor level.
Okay, because when you showed the slide with the side-by-side from what we saw last fall, it looked like it had actually gone up from what we saw at the first time.
On the first floor or the
Yeah.
second floor?
First floor.
First floor, okay. It's my understanding that it's holding, but we can certainly ask
Yeah, we'll ask
the applicant to
Yeah, we
confirm
can
that.
ask the applicant about
Yeah.
that. Okay, any other questions for staff? All right, thank you very much, Marnie. All right, would the applicant like to address the planning commission regarding this application at this time?
Good afternoon. This is Aaron Rose, and I'm Amy Joyce. We're from Lewis Builders, and we're the applicant and designer of this project. Thank you for your time, and thank you, Marnie, for the great explanation here. I think it was really well depicted, the changes that we've made. However, if you have any further questions, and I know you have, we're here to answer. And so Erin was really the lead designer behind this project, so she's here to answer any question that you may have.
Is your mic on there? You just tap it.
Hello.
Just tap it. It's on. Okay, all right. I just want to make sure everybody can hear you.
Should I repeat anything I said, or
Sorry.
is it good?
It's good.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So you just no more comments, just available for questions?
Go ahead.
I can address
Oh.
questions directly, and if you'd like me to start with the solar gain, if you'd like me to start with the solar gain that we would have accomplished with the variance.
Well, this is your opportunity to make your presentation, so I would suggest you go ahead and do that, and then we'll ask you questions.
Okay. Marnie has actually covered the majority of the changes that I was going to mention. We had this presentation that we originally put in, that is the change since the November presentation. We have our response that we wrote in that Marnie covered to the planner's report. And then we have the new variance that we came up with day before yesterday in talking to Marnie. We had a phone call. And then if there are any questions that came up from the walking tour, I'd be happy to answer those as well.
And I just want to respond to the condition number 1, as far as which is the shift further to the west, about 14 inches, I believe, was recommended by staff. And I addressed it on the site tour, but this is not feasible, structurally not feasible. It would also put the second story at an unbalanced situation. As you've seen on those slides from Marnie, the second story is already further shifted quite a ways to the west side. Doing it more would really create an unbalanced building overall for our clients in the neighborhood. And then also structurally, just a shift of 14 inches doesn't really achieve anything and would significantly increase the cost of structural for our design. So this is a change that we would like to stick with the current situation here.
Okay. Commissioner Locke, you had a question about the...
Yeah, can you address the finished floor
Sure.
elevation?
Yes, we are sticking with the existing finished floor, which is on page 2 of our actual plan set that has been certified by the surveyor. So we will stay at 107 plus minus feet, and then build up from that with an 8-foot plate on the first floor. And then we'd prefer a 7.5-foot plate on the second floor for livable human scale, but we are willing to bring it down to 7 feet if that is a condition of approval for us to go forward.
Yeah, so there's no change from the initial proposal on the floor level, same height.
We're trying to maintain as much of the original home as possible and just go up.
If you have a question, go ahead. Commissioner Carpenter.
On the tour today, I noticed that the rough floor is pretty high, above grade, about 2 feet in the back.
Correct.
So have you explored any ways to go down with the floor so you can have more space to work with for the first and second floor?
The problem that we found is that the very far opposite corner is only 9 inches above grade, which is what we need to stay at that end. So if we were to go down, we would then have to involve engineering, drainage, and civil on the northeast corner of the home. So if we go, here we're high, there we're where we need to be. So if we do this, we're then running into French drains, re-engineering that would have to happen. Whereas if we use this existing foundations that we have, they're new, they're in great shape. Well, not new, they've been rebuilt, they're in good shape, and we could, that was our original plan, is we're trying to reuse as much of the foundation and building that we have on site at this time.
And also maintain a one level downstairs for
aging in place.
Yeah, so a solution where the two-story section is a little bit lower is not acceptable?
Correct.
The west half of the house are the bedrooms and bathrooms, and the east side is kind of the living public wing. We need the first floor to be an age in place, both for the client's parents and then for the client's eventual use of the first floor. They will be down there as they age. And I looked for a way to put in a ramp to ramp it down, but it just really wasn't feasible because we have such tight square footage on the house.
So you're willing to sacrifice ceiling height?
Correct. On the second
that.
floor instead,
Okay.
so
Thank
that
you.
we maintain the integrity of the single floor on the first.
Anyone else have a question? I have a question. This is kind of a big question, but I'm just going to throw it out there. And I understand that, you want to get an ocean view for your client, and the neighbor has an ocean view that she doesn't want taken away from her. So, and I'll be honest with you, I appreciate what you've done. You've pushed it, the way you can, but when I was there, it still seemed like it's got a significant impact on her view. And so, and this, this is just an off-the-wall design question, but why not shift it to the east and get out of her view, the second story? Is that something that's even possible?
We would, if we were on the east half of the house, that would completely block her. We would be matching her second floor.
That would still block the
6
view?
feet away.
Marnie, is it possible to go back to your south elevation?
I'm just trying to find some place we can go here to get you what you want and keep the neighbor what they have.
I thought that elevation was actually showing really well how where we place that second story is really clearing the 3 different windows from the second story of the neighbor that have a view. So if it's possible to review it.
I think it was the second slide. It's the third slide, maybe.
Yeah, that could be that one, but yes, that's
Yep.
the one. So, and there's one more window that's maybe not showing right now on the neighbor's property. It's showing to the top, but I don't see that window in the
Yeah,
lower. But anyway, there's, yeah, right there you got 3 windows, and you can see how the 2 second story being shifted from each other are actually clearing those 3 windows. So we've put a lot of thoughts into this, and we've
I'm sure you did. We just see this right now, so I'm
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
like I
No,
said, I'm just throwing stuff out there, but
Yeah.
I'm asking you to
Yeah.
tell me, so,
Yeah,
thank you.
very valid.
Yeah. If we were to demolish one part of the house and go all the way to the east side, we then wouldn't meet because we're not allowed to do a 2 full-story continuous facade along Carpenter. So this was the most beneficial to the north neighbor out of all the second-story locations, and we've kept it as small as we can while still having a usable but modest primary bedroom suite upstairs.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay.
So you said that if you were to shift west into the tree area, that would require, that you basically said you couldn't do it. Has there been any consideration for trimming the tree? And I'm assuming you've got more engineering work or whatever if you had to move it. Obviously, there's more expense.
Correct.
But it would, I would say it would still be possible. And I'm just really curious about the consideration of that, because when we're looking at the neighbor's view, it appears that even a shift of another foot or so to the west potentially would eliminate that problem that she currently is going to face with the new building being in that spot.
Correct. With the house, the second story and the first story would move in tandem, and we don't really have any elements in the house that are only 14 inches wide. Like a standard closet depth is 24, the width of a stair is 36 to 42, a bathroom is 5 feet. So those are the increments that we move in, and that's why we moved originally to the west 5 feet. So, okay, we can now take that new space and slide in a bathroom. If we had more expendable square footage to work with, we probably could have done something with that 16, but you know, Carmel Homes, we're really trying to wring out every last bit that we can, and we want to make sure that we're using it as usable space for the clients and not just, you know, a kind of like, oh, there's shelves there, or where we would put it. We want it to be well utilized.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, members of the public can address the Planning Commission regarding this application.
Thank you, Chair LePage and Commissioners. I am Erin Allen, the neighbor to the north of this project. I'm a full-time resident here in Carmel, and this is my only residence. 2 years ago, my dream of living in Carmel came true, and I put my whole life savings into the purchase of my home. I live and work full-time out of my residence. Unfortunately, I'm here again to oppose this design concept. This design is not the answer. It still removes my valuable view that is called out in my appraisal. As stated in the last concept review, I would be negatively impacted by this design. Views in natural light have a direct impact on home values, not to mention well-being. This negative impact would be irrevocable. You saw on the tour that the new proposed adjustment in the second floor did not do anything. My ocean view will still be taken away. You also experienced the impact this proposed design has on my light. As stated before, my home was built with the windows being located to the south. So this design concept replaces every tree and ocean view with a wall. They have even impacted my view from the kitchen window with the proposed roof change over their kitchen and living area. I've talked with various real estate experts, and they all say that the negative impact would be a minimum of 10% of my home value. This proposed design benefits the Newts and comes unfairly to me since it is a direct and significant detriment.
You can see that on page 21 of their plans. I believe you got a good depiction of what I'm referring to. Every window looking at a wall, at their wall. I'm still optimistic that a better solution for this beautiful property can be created. This home will ultimately be there for years, so I ask that a more thoughtful design that better utilizes the unique aspects of this site be requested and considered. And lastly, just so that we're all clear, I'm sadly disappointed in Lewis Builders and their depiction of events. They have had no regard for my time and have positioned me as their scapegoat when they drop the ball and fail to follow up. Apparently now, if I am unable to accommodate their last-minute, completely disorganized requests, I receive some sort of threatening and positioning letter from their attorney. During the major storms in January, they hung green strips. Those were inaccurate and deceiving, and it wasn't until the yellow netting went up that I got the true picture of the impact. There's something wrong when the entire discussion from the designer around this design is trying to disregard and minimize my concerns as a neighbor. Again, my concerns have never been addressed, only argued and dismissed. The claims that this is the only feasible design are completely false. The limitations or restrictions that they are dealing with are self-inflicted. There are wonderful options that would truly work on this site. I ask that the Planning Commission not approve this design concept nor their request for variance. I've brought my appraisal if you'd like to see it, and I've highlighted all of the areas where it's been called out for the value of my view. You want to see it?
Yeah.
And Chair LePage, I would like to pursue a plan that would potentially put it at the east side of the property, where it could go over what is currently their like laundry shed area and their courtyard area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Allen, could you please just confirm that tonight you're testifying as a neighbor and a resident and not as a planning commissioner?
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
am Erin Allen. I am the neighbor to the north of this project, and I am not, I am stating this as a resident, not a planning commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the Planning Commission? Please come forward.
Good afternoon, Chair LePage and Commissioners, and Brandon and Marnie. I represent the Newts, and I understand this is a contentious issue. I understand Ms. Allen's concern. I understand her desire to preserve her view. I understand she's emotional about it. And unfortunately, in anticipation of an accusation that the Newts and Lewis Builders have been anything other than cooperative is the case, I brought some email chains that the number of times that Lewis Builders reached out, including in January, heard nothing. Months go by, they reached out again, heard nothing other than, I don't like it still. Yesterday was as soon as Lewis Builders could get their 2 additional further revised plans finished, they were sent to her and offered to discuss that with her. Nothing. I reached out and said, look, just reach out to them. It'll get 5 to 10 minutes. If you have questions and concerns, address it with them. 5 to 10 minutes. Nope, I can't do it. Today, you were all out there. After the next site visit you went to, she was not able to attend that either. And I then asked her, can we maybe now spend 10 minutes? And the answer was, no, I'd love to, but I can't. Then we got here, and I sat and watched her sitting in her chair on her phone for a long time. Again, another 5-10 minutes. I'm only bringing this up to rebut an accusation that Lewis Builders has been anything other than accommodating and reasonable. And I think the vigilance with which she expresses her dislike and concerns about the project, if she spent half that amount of energy trying to communicate with the neighbors, as a planning commissioner, she understands full well that that's how this ought to be done, maybe we'd be further along. So I'd like to submit these emails. This is a discretionary process. Of course, we all know that. But it's discretionary only within the confines of the zoning ordinance and the general plan and the design guidelines. And those design guidelines make very, very clear that the only view that is even potentially available for protection is a significant view. Again, as I said in my letter a month ago, the view is, if that view is significant, show me an insignificant view. As Commissioner Locke said a month ago, it is a very tiny view. And we saw that. And the reason for it is, as explained in my letter, it is God knows how many blocks away. Is this working where I can?
So we had about 30 or 40 seconds left on the public comment when we started this, so let's pause that, because we have to set up the camera.
What are we loading?
We're turning on the camera. He would like to share something on the camera.
Okay, the overhead, so we can.
Yeah, it
see stuff. All right,
takes a moment to turn on here.
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know, any questions from the planning commissioners, any technical stuff, we don't deduct that from your time. And if you need more time for something because of whatever you feel, just let me know, and usually I'll grant that. So we try to make sure everybody has an opportunity to make all of their points heard.
And to be efficient, I think Louis Pillars can explain to you, they drafted.
Hey, what's going on? What the? What is going on? What is going on here? Jesus.
So it's Exhibit B to the letter in front of you, just so the public can see, this is the property, way up here. Ooh, right there. That's how far away the view is, which explains why, as shown in Miss Allen's own photograph, where's the view? You see it? Oh yeah. It's that tiny little, if that is a significant view, be careful of the precedent that will be set by protecting a view at this level of insignificance. Yeah, I see some shaking heads. And the problem here is not that perhaps in a bubble the house couldn't be shifted to protect the view, but you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. As I heard Marnie say, if you move it one direction to gain A, it's at the expense of B, and vice versa, and that's the problem here. So even if this view was significant, and clearly it's not, the purpose here is to share views. It's not that Miss Allen gets to retain all of her view, and the Newts have to eliminate everything that they've wanted in this project after already making significant revisions. And this appraisal that we were accused of not being forthcoming with our plans, well, here being sandbagged with an appraisal to be used as a way to bootstrap an easement that doesn't exist. This view is not protectable, and I think that the Newts and Louis Builders have gone above and beyond to make as many feasible revisions and compromises to this project as they can. And I would ask that this project be approved as is. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, is there any other members of the public that would like to address the Planning Commission regarding this application? Okay, seeing nobody in the chamber. I'm afraid to look online. I'm gonna have to close. Yeah, this is really getting disgusting. We got a problem here. Yeah, we need to turn that off. We've been hacked.
All right, so let's just take like a 5-minute.
Yeah, so, yeah, we're gonna adjourn for 5 minutes, see if we can get some of these.
We're not going to adjourn. We're just going to take a recess. Not
recess. We're gonna take a recess for 5 minutes. We will re-adjourn at 5:20. kind of settle down here. Okay, if we can just settle down, we'll reconvene. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Chair, I would just like to, on behalf of the city, apologize for that. That was really unfortunate, and it's sad that that's
Well,
what
it's
people
not,
choose
it's
to
not
do.
city's fault.
It isn't, but it is a city meeting, and so, I feel badly that people had to see that, and it's unfortunate that folks choose to spend their time doing things like that. So we're talking, just in this 5 minutes that we got it set back up. We've put some more safety measures in place. We're going to continue to monitor it, but we will have a meeting internally after this to see how we can make because we haven't had something that bad yet.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you open it up, it's wide open. You can be hacked like that.
And
So.
we try to treat the Zoom platform like you can walk into the chambers, and that's how we try to treat these meetings, so
Right.
that it's as open to the public as possible. But
We're trying to be inclusionary.
Yeah.
But there are bad actors, and it's unfortunate. So
I do apologize to anyone that was offended, and it probably is everyone that was offended by that. So thank you all.
I
for-
apologize too.
Yeah.
We definitely don't want to have those types of experiences here. Okay, let's get refocused here. So we are continuing on design study DS 22191. This is the Newt project, and I believe the attorney for the Newts just spoke. And did the Newts want to come forward? Did you want to address the Planning Commission? I mean,
Only if you have specific questions first.
just to answer questions? Okay, all right. Okay, were there any questions for the attorney or the Newts? Or we're good. Okay, all right. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak to the Planning Commission regarding this application? What are we doing about the Zoom? That's off now, right?
That's fine.
We have,
It's on.
people
Oh,
have
it's
the
on.
ability to raise.
I closed mine. I didn't reopen
Yeah.
it, so there's no hands up. Oh, there is a hand up.
Yeah, but I think that's one of our bombers right there, so.
Is there a hand up?
Yeah, but they've gone, because that was one of our Zoom bombers, so.
They left?
Yep. They've been
Okay.
kicked out.
Okay, I guess we'll close the public comments, open it up to the commission for their comments. Commissioner Dells, you want to begin?
Hey, thank you very much. So I'm just going to read from the design guidelines. Bear with me, because we talk a lot about views here and solar access. The vast majority of the lots in Carmel are 4,000 square feet. That's pretty small, as most of you know, because you live on them. And typically, that means you can have a 1,600 square foot home. And anybody trying to get a little more typically needs to go up. So this is not an uncommon conversation for us. Views to natural features and landmarks are a key feature of Carmel's design traditions. Important views occur to the ocean, canyons, and along streets. Protecting views is an important community concern. This includes views from the public as well as through properties. Also note that the desire to maximize view opportunities from one's own property must be balanced with consideration of respecting views of others. The preliminary site analysis may help identify view opportunities, etc. Design should preserve reasonable solar access to neighboring parcels. Design should protect and preserve the light, air, and open space of surrounding properties when considered cumulatively with other buildings in the neighborhood. Incorporating tall or bulky building elements near the property line of an adjoining site should be avoided. And that's what we got. I mean, there's more words in our design guidelines, but not a lot more. And this is subjective and it is discretionary. And we deal with these on a case-by-case basis. The orange-yellow netting is our tool of choice. And those of us who have been doing this a while get pretty good at figuring out what the difference is between significant and insignificant. But I think we probably all have our own standard to that as well. I know kind of what mine is. It's as simple as the more orange I see, the more concerned I get. And when it comes to views, it's not the size of the view, it's not the remoteness of the view. Is there a view there, and can you see by looking at it that it might be special to you or special to the person that has that view today? So with that preamble, I appreciate what the applicant has done on this. You've clearly listened to us, and you've made a lot of movement. I don't think you've accomplished enough. I think you are, well, let me go back to the incorporating tall or bulky building elements near the property line. I've used this second-story element on this property as tall and bulky. Again, my definition. But as one of the things I do as a planning commissioner is, I think we all do, we walk a lot in this town, and I just pay attention to every home on every street and kind of look at it as a planning commissioner, and my wife and I play the game of, what do you think of that one? There are plenty of homes in this community where you look at it and you say, that used to be a single-story home, and they added something on top of it to get a second story and or a view. And to me, that's still what this design looks like. It looks like there is a rectangle that has been put on top of a single-family home, and it's not subtle, and it is right on the property. It's very close to the property line in a place where the homes are quite close together. You know, there's no driveways, as an example, separating these. They're right next to each other. I don't know that, I want to hear what my colleagues have to say, of course. What staff has put together, and excellent work on this, Marnie, is the suggestion of moving the second story another foot or two to the west. That might solve the view issue. It's close. But your current proposal, in my opinion, is still not just partially blocking, but it's blocking a view that I accept as a significant view. And if moving that building envelope another 2 feet could solve that, that's a positive. I still think it's tall and bulky. I'm concerned that you are constraining yourself by the current foundation. And I understand that that's a big cost element, but it's not our job to manage your costs. And I think if you approach this as if it was a do-over, including foundation work, I suspect you could come up with some different possibilities. I'm sure you can come up with different possibilities, and I hope we could find one that would work. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Dels. Mr. Locke, your comments, please.
Sure. I actually very much agree with the comments that you just made, Commissioner Delves. I do believe that the use of the existing foundation is constraining the creativity that could occur in this case. Beyond this view that we're talking about, to me, this neighbor is now literally staring out her windows at the building next door. And I completely agree that it is tall, it's bulky, and it will have a significant effect on the livability of the house to the north. I would like to see, like I said, I think looking at that foundation and dropping it would be one way to possibly accommodate getting rid of that bulk and mass in the back on the north side. And I really think that that's what needs to happen in this case.
Thank you, Commissioner Locke. Commissioner Karapetov?
Very similar view. I already raised the issue with foundation being high, the floor being at 107. What I can only say is that a lot of projects end up with redoing the foundation. Just the houses were built in a different way back then. So you think that you can keep the foundation, but once you open it, you realize that you have to put additional footings, additional walls, additional support, especially with second story. So it's very difficult to justify keeping it. And also the cost for doing the foundation is, I'm doing a project myself, so I know, is not as significant in terms of the whole project. So I would encourage the applicant to think about changing the foundation, going lower, maybe going to 106, 105, even if it requires some additional work on the higher side of the lot where the grade is around 105. That would be my proposal. I think that will give him a lot of flexibility to get the normal room height of 8 feet and still meet the requirements.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't like to see this where the applicants are kind of devolving into an argument about this. So, and I want to tell you that I really don't want to hear that laundered out here at the commission. We don't look at these projects based upon emotions. We try to look at them based upon the residential design guidelines, the staff report, all that. And we understand that everyone has property rights and everybody wants to develop their property as best they can. And we really appreciate that and value that. And I really want to see some type of way that, these two properties can work this out. So I'm in agreement with my commissioners. I think the view is still significant. Basically, water views are very valuable in terms of emotions and also in terms of dollars. So the second story addition basically takes the water view away. It's significant. It's significant on an emotional level, it's significant on a dollar level. So your designer needs to look at this and figure a way to not do that. It's that simple. And then, do what you want to do with the property. I mean, that's, when a designer approaches the property, there's going to be parameters, there's going to be challenges, and that's the big one here. And it's going to be a stumbling block, because right now, I don't hear any other commissioners have support for it, and I can't support it either. In fact, I'm going to make a motion that we continue this project for redesign.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any more discussion? Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Delves?
Yes?
Commissioner Karapetkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes. Thank you, everyone. What's going on here? Okay, we will continue with the public hearings. The next item in the public hearing is number 6. This is another design study. This is DS 23-019. This is the Cossin Project's consideration of a concept design study for a 265 square foot net addition to a 4,000 square foot property developed with an existing 1,258 square foot two-story residence and a 208 square foot guest house and various site improvements. It's located on Carmelo, 2 northeast of 8th Avenue. And the went to staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair LePage. As you mentioned, this is a continued concept design study. The Planning Commission heard this project at their April meeting and continued it primarily for massing concerns and concerns raised by the neighbors. So this is a 4,000 square foot lot developed with an existing 1,258 square foot house. And in the rear, it's a 208 square foot detached guest house. The existing guest house will be converted to a 264 square foot accessory dwelling unit, which is not subject to review by the Planning Commission, and it will not be included in the property's overall floor area. So the guest house is included, the ADU is not included. There is a proposed addition to the house involving a first-story garage, a transition area from the garage into the house that includes 3 steps. There's a new 13 square foot laundry closet pop-out. This was previously located east of the garage, and now it's located southwest of the garage. The existing exterior fireplace will be demolished and moved to the interior of the living room. They're also proposing a 254 square foot second floor bed bath addition. Adjacent to the second floor bed bath addition is a 60 square foot second story terrace, which does not count as floor area or site coverage. The applicant is also proposing 3 west-facing dormers and converting a rear bay window roof that is copper to a skylight instead. They'll also bring the site coverage into compliance. We can return to this if needed. So in April, the applicant heard the commissioner's concerns and did make revisions, including, as I mentioned, removing that pantry closet and moving the laundry to a closet south of the garage. This enabled moving the garage back from the west property line. It got moved back about 3.5 feet. They also pulled back the roof eave nearly 6 feet, resulting in the terrace being open to the air rather than covered by the roof. They also lessened the size of that second story bedroom. They're also reduce grading. The garage slab will be at 102.06 rather than 100.91. They removed the north and east facing proposed dormer windows that did cause concerns by the north and northeast neighbors. They reduced the width of north-facing second story windows by 6 inches. There are still 4 windows proposed at that north-facing second story. They did remove 2 north-facing windows from the first story though, which will be the garage. So the size of the terrace was reduced from 76 to 60 square feet. And then also they chose a new door design opening to the terrace. So I tried to make these as big as possible, but what you're looking at is the existing condition at the very top, what you saw in April in the middle, and what is currently proposed. Let's see if... Some of the main things to call out here, looking at the west elevation, the left images, obviously it's a 2-story addition going on the facade. The garage at the first story and the terrace adjacent to the new bedroom addition at the second story. The north-facing dormer is removed, and you'll notice that new laundry pop-out just south of the garage door. Still 3 dormer windows proposed for this facade, looking west. And then the rear of the home, along the right-hand column, the only change here is they're no longer proposing the dormer window, but they are still proposing to replace the copper bay window roof with skylights. All right, the north elevation at the left-hand side of the screen, they've removed the dormer. They've pulled the roof off the terrace. They've brought both the garage about 3.5 feet back from the property line, and the roof about almost 6 feet back. They've removed 2 windows at the first story, and they've made the windows at the second story more narrow. And then looking at the right-hand side of the screen, the south elevation, we have the new laundry pop-out, which enabled them to pull back the garage a bit, and again, the roof off of the terrace. The forester did identify 4 significant trees. No trees are proposed for removal as part of this project, and the applicant will be required to plant 3 new upper canopy trees. As we discussed in April, issues of privacy, views, and light were raised. The residential design guidelines do encourage designs that preserve reasonable privacy for adjacent properties and maintaining view opportunities to natural features. The municipal code does say buildings which substantially eliminate an existing significant view enjoyed on another parcel should be avoided. So we've received concerns from the north neighbor about privacy, views, and light, and concerns from the northeast neighbor about views. Staff would support a solar study if the Planning Commission requests one as a condition of approval. However, staff has not identified significant privacy or view impacts associated with this project for the reasons listed below. The dormer windows were eliminated from the project. There is an existing fence along the north side of the DeCossin property that will be retained. The DeCossin house does already have an existing north-facing second-story window, so the addition of additional windows wouldn't substantially change that condition. The north neighbor does not have any second-story windows and enjoys largely unobstructed west-facing views, and then the northeast neighbor's view impact is modest. These photos are taken from the northeast neighbor. There are 3 different areas of their property pictured here. The image on the far left is from the master bedroom. The image in the middle is from the deck, and the image on the right is from the living room. And staff feels an entire view is not being impacted by the proposed addition. It's a partial view that is vegetated. These photos are from and from the north neighboring house. You can see they have 3 windows at the first story, no windows at the second story. So when we're looking at mass and bulk, the addition will increase mass and bulk because it's a 2-story facade addition on a gently sloping lot. However, the addition ridge will be about a foot lower than the existing home, and the proposed project is compatible with the site, with the adjacent 2-story homes, each with street-facing balconies or decks, and with the block. The northwest corner of the DeCossin's proposed garage does extend 8 feet, 9.5 inches past the northwest corner of the house to the north. And the proposed second-story addition will extend 3 feet, 7.5 inches past their southwest corner. However, the south neighbor's garage extends 8 feet, 8 inches past the DeCossin's proposed garage and 13 feet, 10 inches past the proposed second-story addition. So should the DeCossins construct this addition, it would result in a staggered effect of setbacks. Here we're looking at the subject block. So in evaluating the proposed addition against existing homes on the block, staff feels that the mass is not out of character. This slide just speaks to the roof form. As I mentioned, they've reduced the proposed dormers from 5 to 3. They're maintaining the roof slope, and there will be a new roof form caused by that 1-story laundry closet. Here's just a picture of that rear bay window that they'd like to put a skylight roof on. This is largely for a final details hearing, but they are proposing to use stone, stucco, a wood shake roof, wood windows. So staff did not identify any early concerns with the material palette the applicant has chosen. In terms of site coverage, the applicant has met the requirement to bring the site coverage into compliance. No additional revisions needed on that front. Additionally, they've selected a compliant light fixture, and there are no issues with their proposed lighting plan. There are a few draft special conditions, and of course, the commission can add, delete, modify as needed, but the conditions involve the right-of-way. There's an existing encroachment that they would need to remove or obtain a permit for. They would still need to specify the species of the 3 upper canopy trees. They need to do a volume study. We need product information for the skylight and the automatic shades, and we need a construction management plan. So the staff recommendation is to adopt the resolution approving a continued concept design study. And of course, we can discuss any modifications to the conditions of approval. That's all I have.
Thank you. Are there questions for staff from the commissioners? No questions here?
We do have the architect with us and both neighbors.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. Okay, would the architect like to come forward and make this presentation? Mr. Solano?
Also, before we start, can I request an extra minute for my presentation?
Sure.
Thank you. There we go. Good evening, Chair Page, Planning Commissioners, Planning Staff, Jim Soriano, Architect.
Hold on.
Oh,
This one's on, we can turn this one on for you.
thank you. June Soriano, Architect for DS 23019. First of all, I want to thank Catherine for guiding us through this process. In the last Planning Commission hearing, we received clear direction from the commissioners for the design and to address mass and bulk and also address neighbor concerns. I've since discussed with the property owners and they instructed me to accommodate these changes. So here I am. Catherine already in her staff report mentioned a lot of the features and elements we have done to redesign the project. Allow me to highlight a few of them. I just want to point out that the existing there, that the proposed project is about 14 feet at the upper level and 14 foot 10 inches at the main level from the neighbor to the north. I also want to point out that now we are proposing an 18 foot 9 inches setback from the property line to the face of the garage, whereas in the previous application we have 15 foot 3. And as far as the upper level is concerned, we are now 24 foot setback from the property line to the face of the second story, whereas previously we have 17 feet from the face of column. As mentioned earlier, we have redesigned or relocated the laundry room and removed the pantry closet. There was a discussion about the area where we have a long wall, that it's solid long wall. I just wanted to point out a few things. We were there today and there are things that you've seen that probably gives you, and I just want to revisit that. The proposed project is set back. This is the existing wall, by the way, and our proposed addition is set back 10 inches from the existing wall, and it's about 3 foot 10 inches from the property line. So there's that undulating wall, and then on the upper level there exists a 5 foot cantilever. So if you look at this, it's not a straight wall. There's a lot of undulation to create shadow line, create relief in architecture. More importantly, I don't know if you can see the red line, from Carmelo, what we tried to do is to balance the architecture from the Carmelo facade. If you notice, our upper level is cantilevered both on the north and the south side. We tried to balance that architecture, and we made sure that our proposed addition is subservient to the existing 2-story residence in the back. Further to that, our proposed project, as mentioned earlier, is 12 inches below the existing ridge. The plate line currently is 7 foot 4. We're proposing a 7 foot plate line. So as you can see, our architecture, our proposal, mass and bulk wise, is very subservient to what's currently there. To better illustrate this in an image, maybe I should do this. I don't know if you can see this. So this wall I'm pointing at is the existing wall, and then this red line is the 10-inch we're pushing in from the property line, and the garage goes towards Carmelo. in the upper section, there's an existing cantilever. So you can see it's not a solid wall. There's a lot of undulation to create relief and shadow line. Privacy and views. As pointed out earlier, we reduced the amount of windows on the project, and, oh, sorry. And also, I want to point out, apart from taking out the dormers, reducing the size of the windows, the main level windows will have no impact because there's an existing 8-foot fence. I want to point out that these windows are either bathroom or powder room windows. So for that reason, those glass or glazing will be obscured. So there's no impact to the neighbor to the north from their views. They don't have a second-story window. They have a first-floor window, as we saw today, but I don't think they'll be impacted as far as window is concerned. Now, I want to revisit with our tour today with regards to the neighbor to the northeast. Again, want to remind everyone, this is the view from south of this property, the master bedroom. As you can see, you barely see the netting. And then as you head towards north of the property, towards the center of the property, this is the exterior deck. You see a little bit of the netting. And then as you go to the living room, you see a little bit more of the netting. But I want to also comment that there's a backdrop of canopy and branches of the cypress tree beyond. Now, talking about mass and bulk, I want to show images along Carmelo. I did walk through and made sure I kind of understand what mass and bulk for Carmelo looks like. So here's the first image showing the neighbor to the south. You can see a 2-story section here and our diminutive second-story addition here. So mass and bulk wise, I think we fit. We're actually smaller than most. And here's an image from the neighbor to the north, 2-story facade, wide expanse, and again, here's a remodel area. And it goes on the different 2-story structures along Carmelo, especially this one. And some of them are on the setback line, especially this one, that's on the setback line, judging by the car. And here's another one. I think this is corner of Carmelo and Ocean. Pretty massive, expansive view there. Then lastly, I also want to point out, when we were out there today, that the deck, this deck of the neighbor to the south is closer to the property line, and our proposed deck is further out away from the property line. And you can see by the image, there's that distance, and we're more subservient or more pushback. Anyway, this project has no variance. It complies with all the residential guidelines, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the architect from the commissioners? No questions. Thank you, June. Okay, at this time, members of the public, please are invited to come forward and speak to the Planning Commission regarding this application.
One neighbor is on Zoom who.
What are we, I'm sorry,
We have a neighbor on Zoom.
we got somebody, okay, we have a neighbor on Zoom. I don't see I can't see.
Go ahead, Chris Maxey.
Hi, yes, I apologize,
Thank
I'm not
you.
able to turn my camera on. It seems like that's been disabled. I am the neighbor to the northeast. Thank you for your time today. As we discussed in the last meeting, we continue to oppose this concept. What we saw from the resubmission was plans that look very similar to the plans that were discussed during the last meeting. We still see, a significant massing on the property. We believe it continues to create a win-lose where the neighbor wins 180-degree unobstructed view of the ocean with a large, we'll call it bulky 2-story addition that does extend beyond the neighbors. We believe it materially blocks light, air, and ocean views for us, and certainly we won't speak upon our neighbor of the north, but it's certainly to the neighbor of the north as well. We feel that this is just anchoring off of a problematic design. We'd love to see the neighbors revisit and actually come up with a new design versus anchoring and making some minor adjustments. As this project does cut off our views. I think you saw the pictures. I would say that those pictures that were just submitted by the architect don't tell a whole story. I think the commissioners were there today. Depending on where you're standing in our house, and given the angles of that project, it does cut off a substantial amount of view from our living room area. Those pictures were taken from the very southern edges, so we would ask that you consider that. We do believe there's numerous ways to solve this project, and we've talked about it before, that doesn't create a win-lose. There's the ability to build above the existing living room. Certainly there's the ability to connect the ADU in the back with a single-story, very generous addition, and a single-story garage. So we do ask that the architect considers all of those, and even the existing plans even talk about a very generous 80-square-foot walk-in closet, very large master bedroom, which all extend that addition, that second-story addition. So I think that is all of our comments and concerns, but we have the same concerns as we did during the last meeting. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
I think one more. Go ahead.
Thank you for your comments. I'm going to take, is it Daniel Levy? You want to unmute yourself?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I can't turn on my video either. But I wanted just to add to what Chris said, and I'm not an expert in architecture, obviously you all are, but I did take the time to read the design guidelines, which are written in fairly simple language, and even as a layperson, I could identify some problematic angles with this concept. And again, this is forgive me for quoting, guidelines that you know by heart. But I saw guideline 4.0 saying that the open space should be distributed around the building to provide this visual separation from the adjacent structures on the abutting sides and avoid the appearance of crowding. 4.4 says to avoid the canyon effect and consider how side yard space relates to adjacent properties. And you saw from Catherine's presentation that if they add this new addition, then the space that we currently see between our two neighbors to the west would be practically eliminated. So if the other neighbor ever decides to add anything 3 feet from their property line, we're going to be living in a walled-in backyard as if we were in San Francisco, right? Not in Carmel. So this canyon effect, or that this design eliminates the space between these adjacent properties that we see from our house, and does create this canyon effect for us. It's been mentioned several times today already that design should protect and preserve the light, the air, the open space surrounding the properties. That's guideline 5.1. And balance the consideration for desire for views. And we don't think that this is a balanced solution, right? Those neighbors in front of us or to the west are gaining 180-degree second-story bedroom with unobstructed ocean views, while we lose the limited filtered views that we have from our living room. The guidelines 5.2 say to locate the building so they will not substantially block the views. Again, they can move the garage, they can place the bedroom in the first floor or a different location on top of the living room that would address the guideline more properly. 5.3 says to keep the mass of the buildings low. This concept converts a cute Carmel cottage into a massive, large new building from the, the north view. 6.5 says to position the garage to maximize the open space and views. They can move the garage and avoid the problem of creating this canyon effect and the crowding of that space. 7.0 says the structure should be smaller, simple elements rather than a simple a single large continuous form. And this is a large expansive building mass, which is exactly what the guidelines said should be avoided. 7.2 says to minimize the mass of the buildings from the adjacent properties. This design does not do that. 7.3 says, again, to avoid the appearance of a tunnel in between the buildings. And all of those are the same concerns that we have raised previously in the April meeting and are raising again today. We want to work with the neighbors, have them get more space in their house. June has told us that they're looking to build, all they want to do is build a new master bedroom and save, money in that process. We think that there are different solutions that are not a win-lose solution that will allow them to do that. So we hope that we can work towards a truly different concept that will achieve that. And thank you. That's all I had to say.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, I see someone in the chamber who wants to come forward. Please do at this time. Thank you.
Chair LePage, commissioners, thank you. We are the owners of the property directly to the north, so we're the ones that have voiced a few concerns. They really, there's been a lot of thunder taken out of my sails here because many people have quoted sections of the guidelines, which I've noted as well, and it's in a short brief that I submitted earlier, and hopefully you had a chance to see it. And I tried to point to issues that I thought were really substantive, and I've heard some great things that have been talked about before I came up here right now. If I had to say what's the toughest thing to have to deal with, it's the large wall that we look at when we walk out of our home down the driveway. The wall is effectively, they say 3'10" off the property line. I'll say it's 3'10". It's probably 3. The roof overhang takes it down to 1. There is a little articulation, as June mentioned. I won't disagree with that, but I think in the massing of the entire wall section, it's going to read as a massive wall section. I question whether, and if you go through the guidelines, and I can go through them again, but they've been mentioned before, and I think Commissioner Delves quoted one earlier that I would quote today and now, having to do with building up against a property line and respecting massing and that sort of thing, that I really think this design diverges heavily in it, and I think it violates probably more than one design guideline, and maybe as many as all of them at the end of the day. And I think for that it's problematic. Some of the points that we talked about, well, there's a lot of things you can't do with this building just by the fact that what exists is very difficult to work with. Right now, as the building exists, you have if you go to the guidelines, I'll talk about a staggered structure. We have that next door now. We have greenery next door now. So the guidelines sort of fulfill their intent by virtue of the way this house is currently built without the addition. And I think the addition starts to grab into that. There are a couple of things I think that you've just heard, which I also agree. I think that this addition is somewhat forced. I think it still looms. I think it's still big. I think it still reads big from the street. I think the photographs that you just saw of other homes on Carmelo, I think they were a great example of how it can be done right if you have a garage in the front of the building and how that garage can work with a second story. And I think there were a lot of good examples of design in almost every one of those photos you saw. I don't think that this design gets close to being a good design addition to this home. I hate to say that, but I'm going to. I am an architect by education. I'm licensed. I think architecture is my passion, and I'd love to see something great come out of this. I don't think this is it. The building already has two bedrooms. I understand that, this is an opportunity to expand it. But maybe just by virtue of the size of the lot, by the size of the house, by the way the house is laid out, it doesn't provide an opportunity to add on to it, and it begins to bastardize the house. My opinion. The guidelines speak a lot to garages. I think everybody would like a garage. That'd be terrific. But the guidelines also say it may not be possible. And I don't know if this is one of those cases. So right now, I would say that we're opposed to this design. I think that's clear. And we've probably said that earlier in our brief. And I would like, and I think that Maxie and the last speaker, I think both had good suggestions. I think there are alternatives to what's being proposed now. And I think it would be a great addition to Carmel to rethink this and do it differently. And I would hope that you would see it that way and draw that conclusion. But thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, is there anyone, let's finish with the public. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the Planning Commission regarding this application? Okay, I don't see any hands online and nobody in the council. So the architect would like to make some further comments to rebut, and I allow time for that.
Good evening again. Can I see that aerial map to show them?
Let me try and get to it.
I'm just trying to get some visual to show everyone.
Sorry.
I just want to point out this aerial map shows an overview, an aerial view of the different properties. And there was a comment about panel effect, and you can clearly see with the north neighbor how closer their setbacks are. Our setback from the north neighbor is more than what he has on his south side. So Carmel is Carmel. There's an ordinance. Composite setback 10 feet, 3 on one side, 7 on the other side, however you want to do your combination, as long as it meets the composite setback. That was created as part of the guideline. Also, it was mentioned that the project violates several guidelines. Well, I did not prepare the staff report. The staff prepared the staff report saying that what guidelines they use and how we met those residential guidelines. Also, Chris mentioned that the photos was incorrect. I take offense to that because we were all there. I was taking photos of what I see, and I did mention there will be impact on all sides. I'm just saying that it should be shared view. So to say that my photos are inaccurate, I was there. I was taking pictures of what we all saw. I just wanted to remind everyone. So again, we're not asking for anything more than what other property owners are enjoying. Our mass in bulk is minimal compared to our neighbors to the south and east and the rest of some of the two-story buildings on Carmelo. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, open it up to the commission for our discussion. Commissioner Allen, would you like to begin?
Would you mind if I went last?
Not at all, not at all.
Thank you.
Commissioner Locke, would you like to begin?
Sure. Where to begin on this? No, I think this is actually a really pretty design. So I'm kind of, I heard the comments that were made by the public. I don't find the addition to be particularly massive and bulky and whatnot. And I think given the constraints of the property and how, they're just basically enlarging a bedroom on the second story. Yeah, I don't think I really have a lot of comments on this. It's, I don't think that the impact to the northeast neighbor is particularly significant. I am happy to see that there's a proposed condition on the right-of-way encroachment or on the front. And no, the only thing I would say is that if it could be slightly, the garage moved slightly to the south to create just a little bit of a bigger, variation in the wall or in that one, the north elevation. That would be the only thing that I can see. And I missed the first hearing on this, so this is my first shot at it. And those are my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Locke. Commissioner Delps?
Yeah, thanks, everyone. And thanks to the applicant for making some changes that we asked for. I think I'm, to some extent, still where I was a month ago or 2 months ago. 2 months ago. I still think that this addition is extending too far west. I said that 2 months ago without having had the benefit of going inside the north neighbor's house. I did trespass on your driveway once. So a lot of it was really just a perspective from walking down that street all the time and just seeing that that significant mass and bulk was going to be very noticeable as a pedestrian walking down the street. And it would affect the character of the community and take a house that is subtle and beautiful and sits where the original architect wanted it to sit, and kind of just adds a little bit of a look at me statement that, you know, I'm now a much bigger house. And I believe two months ago, I really felt that it should be moved back, not just 2 feet, but 6 or 8 feet. And specifically didn't try to get into figuring out how to do that, because that's not my job. And I'm still there. Let me go to the views first. I think this is a case where I don't have concerns of the view. To the northeast neighbor, I saw your views, and you will still have a significant view after this project, and however it manifests itself. And that's when you have the design guidelines. What we're trying to do is make sure we don't have a significant blockage of a significant view, right? So I'm saying this isn't a significant blockage. You still have a significant view for the northeast neighbor. To the north neighbors, similar from a view standpoint. You have a great view to the ocean out the front, and I don't think this is really impacting your views. It impacts your peripheral vision from your deck, sure. So really the concern comes to the tunnel effect that you pointed out, the north neighbor pointed out today and was mentioned before. And I do think that someone sent us a proposal. Did that come from the north neighbor?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, I thought that was compelling, because essentially what it did was it just reconfigured the new bedroom and bath and closet. It eliminated some circulation space and allowed for the garage to stay where it is, as proposed, but move back the second story wall, essentially, what would be the west end of the second story, move it back another 6 feet. And that would actually increase the deck, because we're not moving back the garage. Although if you could move back the garage, I'd like you to. You're at 19 feet now. I don't know what the specifics are on how long a garage should be. But I thought that idea was clever. And that, I think, you're not going to get rid of the canyon, but I think it would cut down on the canyon. And you're still going to feel that canyon, the north neighbors are, from the back of the lot, but not so much at the front of the lot, and certainly not from your deck. So I thought those were good ideas. I'm with Commissioner Locke. I think it's a very pretty home. I think the addition is respectful of the existing house. So I would just like to see that modification.
Thank you, Commissioner Delps. Commissioner Carter-Petkoff?
I just wanted to say that I really love this house. every time I walk down the street, that's my favorite on Carmelo. And it's not just the house, it's the garden with the roses. We were all there today. All the plants, it's beautiful. Even the gate that we discussed removing is nice too, with the tiny little quails. So it's one of these houses that make Carmel special, and I would like to see it preserved as much as possible. And that's why I'm thinking, why is the extension not going backwards? We saw this space in the back. There is a way to extend the house in the back. If the desire is to get more square footage and additional bedrooms, yes, you don't get the view, but it's perfectly fine to have a guest bedroom in the backyard. Not all bedrooms have to have a view. And I agree with the comments from Commissioner Dales about reducing the bulk in the front. I think that's important. So that's what my only suggestion is, if possible, to expand in the back where nobody sees, and it is less of an impact when looking from Carmelo, and reduce the bulk as much as possible, and preserve the character of the house. There were some comments that I heard about changing like seeing a completely new design. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to help. I mean, this is a very special house for Carmel, and we have to preserve it the way it is as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and make my comments, so you're going to be last.
Oh, okay, all right.
Because you wanted to be last.
Okay.
And I take you literally. Yeah, I see this a little differently than my fellow commissioners on this side of the dais did. I think we gave direction to the architect. I think he followed direction. I think the view impacts to the northeast neighbor, they're insignificant. They have a beautiful view there. They can barely see this addition. It doesn't block something more than 50%. From some of the rooms, you can't see the addition over the existing roof. So I don't think it rises to the level of significant. And that is the threshold that we deal with for all of its inconsistencies and subjectivities. But in this case, for me, it's easy to see, or easy to make that determination that it is not significant. I also feel that any view impacts to the neighbor to the north are not significant. They enjoy a very beautiful 180-degree view there. Yes, if they look to the south, they may see this addition, but it does not impact their view of the water or significantly impact it. The issue of tunneling and the setback has come up, but there is articulation there. It's minor, but it is there. There's setback to that house to the north. There's a significant setback to that house. And so I think that is not really a significant issue either. If you look at this house in the context of the neighborhood, the houses around it are really quite a bit bigger. And I know they were designed to different rules, different setbacks, different guidelines, or an absence of guidelines when they were built. But this house meets the standard. Obviously, there are discretionary or subjective interpretations of the guidelines, but I feel that in the context of the neighborhood, it meets the standards, it meets the guidelines. So I will support this project as it is presented today. Commissioner Allen, your comments, please.
Okay, so I actually align more with Commissioner Delves in terms of, I do believe that there is some more that we can do in order to alleviate that tunnel effect when two homes are side by side and at the same height. And it's a lovely, lovely home. I do enjoy what he is proposing in terms of the overall look and feel of the home, but I do think that there is a little more work to be done in terms of getting it to the right shape and size. And so I also want to add that I would not support the gate. I feel like that definitely is a statement, and I think that we should start getting away from the fenced fronts and the gates. And so, other than that, a lot of my comments have already been made. So, thank you.
Okay, it sounds like we do not have a majority support for the project, so we have an obligation to give direction to the applicant. And what I've heard is the main objection seems to be the mass and bulk. That was, to summarize Commissioner Delves, and also the setback on the north side. That was your concern, the tunneling. Do you want to clarify it any, or am I?
Yeah, to get specific, I think the change I'm looking for is for the second level bedroom. For the, what did I say, the west end of that bedroom to be moved 6 feet, and you can debate what it is, but I'll say 6 feet further east, and the garage as is. So do you understand?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So, okay, so your direction is that the addition move 6 feet back towards the east from the west, where it presently is, and your concern, Commissioner Allen, is the tunneling?
Yeah, so that eliminates that, because then what you're saying is that the garage would be 1 story, and then the second story would be pushed back from that, correct?
So, yeah, so the garage, by the garage coming in, coming into existence, yes, it'll be a little taller than the current fence, but not a lot. It'll have a deck on top of it, which will have a railing, but that's transparent. And so by pulling the second story back to the east, you're not eliminating the tunnel, but you're mitigating it.
Right.
That's
Okay, all right, so that's a specific direction.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would suggest maybe one of the commissioners make that as a motion.
That was where that's my next move, is that one of these commissioners, I would suggest, make a motion to that effect, with that direction.
Well, I'll do it.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
So I'll move to accept the resolution in our packets, but add one more condition, that the second story of the addition, and the second story is the new primary bedroom, that it be moved 6 feet further east. Yep. I'm happy to have.
I think it would be wise, probably, if you would like to hear from the applicant's architect, how they feel about that, but you can certainly do that without hearing from the applicant's architect, and that would move you forward to a final.
Well, let's continue with the motion,
Yeah,
and then we'll have further discussion, and then we can I can open it up to the applicant. But if I do open to the applicant, I'm also going to open up to the public for their comments, too. Okay, so that's your motion?
That's my motion.
All
I
right.
second that.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to accept the resolution as presented by staff with one additional condition, that the second story bedroom be moved 6 feet to the east. Is that correct? Did I state that correctly? Okay. All right, so we're going to have further discussion. The architect, please come forward.
I just want to clarify clearly, because 6 feet is a lot, but I'm trying. Based on that direction, are we saying if I do that, am I going for final now, or I'm still in design study?
That's up to the commission. So if they make a motion and they adopt that, the motion that was made was to accept the resolution with a condition that would be added to the final, or you would make that change before coming to final. Either way, we'd be coming back for final if the motion
It would be the position of the commission that you would be final, because that's a specific direction. It's not. We're not being subjective about it. We're saying a nominal amount that you have to move it. If we said we're leaving it up to you, then we would still be in concept.
So I'm
But
clear.
but Commissioner Delps has made a motion that is specific.
Thank you. That's why I was trying to clarify, because that's a very specific direction, 6 feet, keeping the garage where it is, because I had to meet the required minimum square footage for a garage width and length. So the garage, I don't know how to move that. Beyond that, our existing structure. So if that's a specific direction to push the second story 6 feet back, then yes, we're going to do our best to do that, and I'm hoping I can go to final from there.
Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
your comments, thank you. All right. Members of the public, any members of the public, please come forward and make your comments.
Mine's quick. I think some of what is being discussed right now might be in reference to something that I sent along. So just be careful with those dimensions, because I didn't take a hard look at those. They work, but I don't know if it's 6 feet or 7 or 8. So take a hard look at that, or I'm happy to try to confirm it for you. June, it's a good, I think it's a good resolution. I do. I think it's a very good resolution. I think it lays the room out actually in a better way than it was laid out before, and I think the bedroom's fine. Everything fits in and works. But you're saying 6. I'd like to just double check that number. So it will be a fixed number. Maybe it's 6. I got to look at it.
We have a motion.
We have a motion, and right now it is a specific number, so. But there's going to be another hearing. You have an opportunity to review the revised plans and make your comments at the, and I think that Planning Commission has demonstrated that we do listen to the public.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to comment on this before I close?
One Zoom person.
We got a hand up. Okay, Danielle Levy, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that too. I think there are no like new windows, new dormers, new height, and the second story bedroom is moved back at least 6 feet. We think that would be a good compromise as well.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Delves?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Okay, does anyone need a recess, or are we good to continue here? Keep going? Okay. We'll power on through.
They're all easy after this.
It's all downhill. It's all downhill.
Famous last words.
Yeah. Careful what you wish for. Okay, all right, so we are on public hearing item number 8. This is another design study. It's DS 23-022, the Belias project. This is consideration of a design study for a 716 square foot addition to an existing one-story single-family residence, including 509 square foot second story. It is located 4th Avenue, on 4th Avenue, 2 northeast of Lobos in the R1 district. Can we have staff report, please? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm very sorry, but I think you just read the description for number 8, and we are on number 7.
Oh, no.
Mitchell Burcham. You did a wonderful job reading the description for number 8.
That was one of my quicker. I know, I think you're really, well, we'll just back up to number 7 now. Let's try this again. Another design.
Not the worst thing that's happened tonight.
Another design study, yes. Wishful thinking. Okay, it's DS 23-069. This is the Mitchell Burcham project. And this is a design study and coastal development permit for a full exterior renovation to a 268 square foot net addition and construction of a 220 square foot detached garage and front yard setback to an existing non-conforming 2-story 1,737 square foot single family home. And it's located on Santa Rita Street, 2 northwest of 4th.
Thank you, Chair. And this is, as you said, it's a combined concept and final design study. And the project size is 4,000 square foot, and the existing is about 1,700 square feet. It is inclusive of a 269 square foot attached carport. And the applicant is proposing to expand an addition of 268 square foot, along with the detached carport in the front yard setback. That will be about 220 square feet. It is a non-conforming house, and the plate height It's 23 feet and 3 inches, and only 18 feet is allowed. And the rear yard setback is also, it's only 11 feet and 15 feet is required. And the applicant is proposing an ADU on the lower level, which is going to be about 731 square feet. And the total floor area with the ADU would be about 2,500 square feet. And in terms of forest character, there are 11 trees on the lot, 3 significant ones, 2 coastal live oak and 1 Monterey pine. And the 7 non-significant, 6 of them are pittosporum and 1 is the other. And 2 of the pittosporums to be removed pending review. And the city forester is recommending planting 2 upper canopy trees, and the applicant is proposing to plant 2 cypress trees. In terms of privacy and view, there's going to be very minimal privacy and view impact. All the windows that are proposed are existing, and the new ones are in the back in the rear. And the neighbors are all supportive of all the neighbors are supportive of the project. And the north neighbor, when the staff report was written, he wasn't able to contact us. So I did have a condition of approval number 32 that stated the applicant shall reduce the window size or make the glasses opaque. But the applicant from the north neighbor did contact the owner today, and he was supportive of the project. In terms of mask and bulk, the addition does not significantly increase the mask, as you could see in the street view, and it is compatible with the site of the adjacent properties. In terms of the building and roof form, it's the addition is very simple, and it has a rectangular building form, and it's going to maintain the flat roof. And they are proposing to change the tar and gravel with gray pebbles that's going to be adhered to a PVC membrane. And there are 5 existing skylights, and they are proposing to maintain that. And but it's going to be non-reflective glass, and they are proposing to have automatic interior shades. They are proposing a detached carport in the front yard setback, and it does conform to all the dimensions that is required for a carport in the front yard setback. And the landscape plan, you could see that there are some vegetation, but it's going to be kept in a natural state in the right-of-way. And the city forester has indicated that the coastal live oak will not be affected, provided they have the required tree protection and the conditions. And it is a carport, so it's open by nature, and there is about approximately 14 feet between the face of the carport to the berm on Santa Rita. So it contributes minimum hazard and safe movement for pedestrians and vehicles. And the carport it is in scale with the house of the neighborhood, and the style is in keeping with the modernist style of the house. And there are a few carports in the block. In terms of the site coverage, they are proposing only 545 square feet of site coverage, where 97% is going to be permeable, so it is consistent with our guidelines. In terms of light, they have 6 types of exterior light fixtures, and all will be shielded and downlight fixtures. And they're proposing the lumen level to be somewhere between 50 to 325, and the maximum allowed at 375, so it's below that. And all the light fixtures, the finishing would be in bronze. In terms of fences, they are only proposing a 6-foot high grape stake fence along the south side of the property. And there is an existing 4-foot fence in the right-of-way, which they would be removing. And there are other fences on the west as well as the north. They will keep the existing fences. In terms of finished detail, they're proposing horizontal unpainted cedar or Kibani siding, and the lower level have stucco siding with soft gray color paint. And the roof, as I stated before, it's going to be gray pebbles, and it's going to be adhered to a PVC membrane. And the window is going to be aluminum-clad windows in midnight bronze. And the front door is going to be faux wood, and it is going to be stained. And this concludes my presentation, and staff supports the acceptance of the resolution, and this concludes my presentation. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer it.
Okay, are there any questions for staff? And I forgot to mention that Commissioner Aller had to recuse herself from this particular application. She lives within 500 feet of it. Okay, no questions for staff. All right, okay. Can the applicant or the designer come forward and make their presentation?
Try to make this quick. I'm the architect for the project, Patrick Leemaster. Thanks, commissioners and Chair Brandon Saray. Great job. Just a quick rundown. 1950s mid-century house. Been in my client's family for quite some time. They've now have moved here full time, hoping to settle down here, retire here, live out their life here. The gist of the project is basically insulating the building, new windows, new plumbing, new electrical, new siding. So trying to bring up that mid-century feel with a little more contemporary materials, all natural wood siding. My client is an environmental engineer, so we're gonna go all electric for the house and do as much insulation as possible, water conserving as possible. The carport, existing carport, as you probably saw in the site visit, the street's really steep to get into that existing carport. So that's what we wanted to bring that carport out to be able to access it from the street a little bit easier. I think that's about it for the project. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
So are there any questions for the architect? Thank you. Okay, are there any members from the public that would like to address the Planning Commission regarding this application? Please come forward at this time.
Good evening. I'm Joe Pasqua. My wife, Mary Kenny, and I live just 4 houses down on Santa Rita, and I'm happy to speak in support of what must be the least controversial project on the agenda tonight. Great project. We know the applicants. We've been following their design process, and I think it's been a really good one. They've been very thoughtful in working with their architect to come up with a minimal impact plan, and we think it's going to be a great improvement for them and for the neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else from the public that would like to address the Planning Commission regarding this application? I don't see any hands going up online. Okay, I'm going to close the public comments, open it up to the commission for their comments. Commissioner Locke, you want to jump in?
I love this project. Let's start out. No, I think it's a really tasteful upgrade of the mid-century look. The materials are really, I think, are going to be very complementary to the neighborhood and nature in general. I think the colors are appropriate, yeah, I think it's a nice project, and it's nice to have all the neighbors supporting it as well.
Commissioner Dels.
Yeah, well done. I think I'm so pleased with this. We're going to offer one-stop shopping and give you both a concept and final design review, assuming my colleagues agree with me. But you know, it's that thorough an application, and the changes you're making really they're just making something better, and including the neighborhood. So thanks for that.
And Commissioner Carapapa.
Yeah, I would like to second that. It's a very logical plan. It's very well executed.
Yeah, I think what needs to be acknowledged is that these mid-century moderns are really a part of the architectural character of Carmel. I mean, they're all over town, and this one was a nice original mid-century modern. I mean, it's a modest building. It probably addressed cost issues, things like that, and the architect and the owner, they're just making it better. You know, they're upgrading it. Like I said, they're putting solar, going to make it an electric house. You know, it's taking something which has a lot of historic character to our community and bringing it back to life, modernizing it, and it's really a great example. So obviously I'm supporting this. So we have a motion from staff, which has a few special conditions. I don't think there's anything here out of the ordinary. There's a tree removal permit required. Staff is requesting that, what is that, item 32 is primary window. Prior to issuance of building permit, the applicant shall make primary window on the north elevation opaque or change the location. The applicant okay with that, I guess?
You could delete that because I only put it there because we didn't hear it from the.
Oh, okay, we're going to delete that. Okay, so we're going to, the item number 32, the special conditions, we'll delete that. Tree plan requirements, 33, right-of-way encroachments, 34, conditions of acknowledgement for 35, construction management plan and volume study. So I will make a motion that we accept the resolution as presented by staff with the deletion of special condition number 32.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Delves?
Yes.
Commissioner Karpetkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes. Thank you, everyone. The motion is carried. Okay, see if I can get on the right page here.
Number 8.
Thank you for that subtle help there. Yes, well, the other was just a rehearsal. Now we're going to do it for real. Okay, we're at item number 8, according to Commissioner Delves. DS 23-022, this is the Belias project. It is a 716 square foot addition to an existing one-story single-family residence, including 509 square feet, second story, located 4th Avenue, 2 northeast of Lobos. Can we have staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Planning Commission. I'm here tonight to present Belias. A little quick background here. If you recall, we have been here recently with this project. March 10th, Planning Commission was the first concept hearing, so we're back again for another concept hearing. This project was continued. At the concept hearing, we did receive late comments from neighbors regarding privacy and view impacts. The commission was unable to tour those neighboring sites because of the timing of those comments. And so the commission decided to continue this item to allow for that tour to take place. There was some preliminary feedback on several of the final design items. Most of them were positive. However, there was one outstanding about a metal roof being appropriate for this site, and we will discuss that a little bit later. So if you recall, it's a large lot, just over 7,300 square feet with an existing 1,800 square foot residence on there. The proposed addition adds about 700 square feet total, 200 of that to the lower area and 500 of that to the upper second floor in the rear. There is some site coverage work being done as well. If you recall, the forest character, there are significant trees and moderately significant trees. There is a condition of approval that would be come back to you in the final details hearing about recommended tree density. We had a conversation about mass and bulk and building and roof form. And some of the other considerations from the last meeting had to do with the building color. That has actually changed since the first, the color has been changed to a color called agreeable gray, which is less white. That was the direction from the Planning Commission. So agreeable gray is the new color being proposed. When we come back for final details, we'll identify and get more clarity on some more of the finished materials, finalize the landscape forest enhancement plan. But the one to talk about, just so you can give direction perhaps tonight as part of your decision, and I know that the applicant's architect wants to have a discussion about the metal roof, but the PC direction at the May 10th hearing was to remove the metal roof from the plans. They did not feel it was appropriate for the architecture of the surrounding neighborhood. We did add a condition of approval, recommended condition of approval that would come back to you at the final details hearing to remove that. But we did receive a letter from the applicant's architect who is here today to speak to that. Just something to keep in mind as we go through. The real reason, the main reason that we are here tonight is to discuss privacy and views from both the northern and eastern neighbors. As you can see, the north neighbors expressed concern over both privacy and views. You can see the pictures showing, and you saw today on our site tour, that from their library, there is a view of what's being added. And also there was some concerns about from the courtyard and coming down the driveway about the views being impacted. And from the east neighbor, who we also did do a site visit today, there are concerns about an ocean view. As you saw today, we did go into a dormer window and have to sort of crook our heads out the side, which, you know, the neighbors were very forthright about that. They said you do have to look out the window, but they do feel that they enjoy that view and it will go away with this application. So those are the two main considerations coming out of the preliminary details hearing last time. We were able to complete both of those site tours today, so you should be able to make your determination whether or not there are privacy and view impacts from the proposed development. There were some additional neighbor concerns on top of the overall privacy and views, those surrounding massing being too large, too close to the property line, blocking of access to light. There was a comment about the new color, that agreeable gray, I believe it was called, still being too reflective, and some concern about construction noise impacts. There was a request made by one of those two neighbors to include a condition of approval to reduce the construction hours that are currently allowed in the city's municipal code, which are from 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday. As you know, we do not allow construction or any work that requires a permit on Sundays, so that already exists. The request from the neighbor was to reduce that further to limit it from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and only Monday through Friday. So that was a request, just making the Planning Commission aware of that. We talked a little bit about this at the prior hearing. As I mentioned, there has been one modification since the prior hearing. The bathroom window on the north elevation was a clear window. The applicant has changed that to an opaque window. There have been no other changes to the privacy and view. I did mention the color. But there have been no other changes to privacy and view. It's worth noting that the previous staff report, which was an attachment to this staff report, did find that with respect to privacy and views, the project was consistent with the city objectives for privacy, views, and solar access. That staff report was attached for your reference, this one. So with that, the recommendation from staff is to adopt a resolution accepting the concept design study and move this along to a final details hearing. With that, I am available for questions.
Questions for staff from the commission? No questions over here? No. Okay. Thank you, Brandon. Okay, would the architect like to come forward? I see Adam Jeslick's here.
Good evening, Chair LePage, members of the Planning Commission. I am Adam Jesselnick. I'm the architect for Nick and Michelle Belasis, who own the home here that we're considering tonight. Thank you, Brandon, for your work and filling in for Evan tonight. And thank you to everyone in the public for being here as well. I will just focus my attention on a couple of areas, the first being the main purpose that we're back here tonight to review the concept design, which is to address the neighbors' concerns about view and privacy. We do feel that we agree with staff's findings that the original design concept meets the city guidelines as pertaining to privacy and views. We also feel that in consideration of the size and scale of the lot, that the house is and remains a very sort of modest intervention in the neighborhood. And we would, of course, be able to answer any questions you might have about the design and the proposal for the second-story addition. But again, we feel that the house does meet all of the city zoning guidelines for this lot. Just a quick comment about colors and materials, because I do think we want to get any feedback possible based on the changes that we've made to the project since the last hearing. You know, in my observations, I live close by to the neighborhood. I've worked on many projects nearby. It does seem to me that just in a cursory review of the houses that I saw today, about 90% plus of the houses in the neighborhood have a comp shingle roof. I think that the design guidelines are pretty clear about encouraging a diversity of materials and quality of materials that reflect the standards that we hope to see for residential design in Carmel. And so I feel like for that reason, the metal roof contributes to the neighborhood in a way that another comp shingle roof might not. We're all aware of the problems with wood roofs on the basis of the fire, problems with fire. I think that other possibly more traditional materials on a house like this, a ranch style home, would be inappropriate, a stone roof, a clay tile roof. And so again, I just want to point out the merits that we see, that my clients see in the metal roof. Obviously, this is a broader citywide discussion that has come up on many projects. I've personally worked on and had approved many homes with metal roofs in town that I think have all come out looking very nice and fit into the neighborhood well. So we're eager to hear your comments regarding that, and of course I'm available to answer any questions you might have about the project.
Questions from the commission? I guess we don't have any at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members of the public at this time can come forward and address the Planning Commission regarding this application.
Sorry, we're both the neighbor to the... I'm not sure we'll need that much. Thank you for this opportunity. Actually, this is my sort of first experience kind of dealing with city stuff, except for like sitting in on a city council meeting a long time ago in Mountain View. So thank you, and I apologize for coming up with comments late in the last time. I would have said by the deadline, not late, but you know. So we're the neighbors to the east. I keep thinking north because I'm no good with directions. And we have slightly different comments about what the thing is. So I was sitting. Thank you for coming by today too. And I don't know if you sat in the red chair. So I'll just say that my one comment about the project is that I was sitting in the red chair in our living room, looking out the window, as I often do. Actually, it's sort of a joke, but that's where I actually take my blood pressure. But I was sitting there, looking out the window when people were on the roof of the neighbors, putting up the yellow flags, which is what they put up first. And that's when I learned that, hey, the neighbor's putting up a second story. And so I was like, oh, okay, I got to do something. And then eventually, I apologize again for being late. Eventually, we looked up the plans and everything else, and I was like, okay, I felt like having, you know how your eye focuses on a person when you see them? So we saw a person on the roof, so I could see what it would feel like to have a person in a window on the roof, and that's sort of what I was reacting to when I said I think my privacy is going to be impacted if someone's there. And that was the picture I sent along with this stuff that I think was in the packet that I sent you. It was, okay, here's a person on the roof. That's kind of what I'm going to see. I actually, listening to you guys and thinking about it more, I'm not sure that the privacy is a concern for me because there's going to be windows and they're going to be looking at me. I'm going to be looking at them because when you see a face, you can't avoid it. But in fact, to me, the flat face right up against the wall, I mean, there's a couple of trees there that you could see. They're pretty small. They'll probably get destroyed when the fence comes down for the project, because it'll probably have to come down for the project. Hopefully the slightly bigger oak will stay. But there's a couple of sort of smaller trees there. But when the project's done as it's designed, there's 2 stories of flat stuff right up, not on the property line, but really close to the property line. And so that was what bugged me the most. And I didn't actually even realize until I went to the website, found the lovely Carmel design guidelines, and then there was a sentence, which has been quoted here like several times in section 5, that said, incorporating tall or bulky building elements near the property line of an adjoining site should be avoided. I was like, oh, so it's not just me, it's even in the design guidelines that this sort of flat face is to be, not something that is accepted. And I know we have I'm going to say it, I feel like we're really lucky in the space that we have and everything else, and I feel bad even complaining about this because there is space there. But I feel like if somebody builds something on the other side, 3 feet, that's 2 stories, we're setting ourselves up for something bad, and there seems to be plenty of room to put a second story not right there. So anyway, thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it over to my lovely other resident and wife of the...
I'm Ann Urban. I'm the other eastern neighbor. And again, we're incredibly lucky we lucked into that house when it happened to be coming up for sale. And we're looking forward to doing a little bit of paint and fix up on it and staying there. And it feels a little crazy for me to be complaining about someone else trying to add space to their house, because there's just two of us and we rattle and we totally grin. And so we would love to work with them to come up with something where they can achieve what they want, because it seems like that should be totally possible. Just right where they're putting that second story addition blocks it cannot be by any stretch called significant according to the guidelines, but it is our only ocean view.
My wife.
Exactly.
I will just say that. So I have to
care.
support her.
I know, we care about two completely different things, because, anyway, so we would love to work with them. They can traipse through our house. We'd love to, do any kinds of planning and design with them. But the way it stands now is fairly intrusive from our point of view. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, any other members of the public that would like to address the Planning Commission regarding this application? Please come forward.
Good evening, Chairman LePage, Commissioners. Good seeing you again. I'm Tracy Manning, and I own the house to the north of the Belasas residence. Sorry. I have 3 concerns about this property. My biggest one, of course, is the massing. This is a existing 60s ranch-style house. And when I look at the plans, it looks like a huge amount of the house is going to be demoed. And the whole siding is going to change, the windows are going to change. Now we're talking about putting a metal roof on, so we have a bat on board with the seam metal roof. It kind of gives it that tent effect. But on my property, as I showed you today, my guest house is 500 square feet, plus or minus. It's as though this top, like my guest house, would fit right on the top of this so-called second floor that they're adding. And they're adding it to the section of the Belasas residence that is the closest to my wall. I have a wall on the property line. And it doesn't look like too bad from 4th Avenue, but when you come down Monterey Street, the 3 of us on that end went a little raised. You can look, and here is just this huge massing. It doesn't seem to fit in with anything. My house was built to tuck into the area, so it lays low. And the feature piece of my house is the roof, all the tile roof. And this piece just doesn't seem to be congruent with me or really the neighborhood. So the massing is really the most important piece. But going along with the massing is the color. Now I know that they've changed the color to something called agreeable gray. I am a certified interior designer, and I'm also an architectural colorist. So when I saw the change, I thought, maybe that will work. Went down to Sherwin-Williams, pulled a sample. It's just a super pale gray. And when you see it, if we ever get sunlight, it will just be very reflective. And even in the gray that we seem to be living with, it's going to be reflective and it will sit basically like it looks like it's on the top of my tile roof. It's very, very close on the north side, not so much on the, what would that be, south. Then the proposal that I have seen, I haven't seen anything different, is there's black trim, door and window trim. So I think that's going to make it look like little peepholes, especially with the 2x2 windows that travel around. on the building. So I think the color and the massing go hand in glove. I disagree with the architect. Of course, for those of you who know me, it won't be the first time, but I think the seamed metal roof absolutely does not work for two reasons. The neighborhood, and if you're having bat on board, in elevation, you'll see bat on board making a striped effect into a seamed metal roofing, so you get more stripes. So it's going to kind of give that little circus tent effect. Other than those few things, I'm very curious about with the construction period. If the construction period, if this project gets approved, what you can do if there's any accommodation, because the whole private, quiet side of my house is in their backyard, essentially, as you saw. So I'm gonna have, if I have to have construction from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6:30 in the evening, 6 days a week, it's a lot, especially because I have a design studio. I don't see clients there, but I do have to think, and I do have to work on projects. So I wonder if you can't change the construction period around, as I said in my letter to Brandon today, to something that's more in a business mode, so at least you don't have this hammering, banging all the time. It's a very small neighborhood.
Can we, your 3 minutes are up, can we kind of summarize?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just gonna say thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any other members of the public that would like to address the Planning Commission regarding this application? Don't see anybody in chambers, don't see anybody online. So I'm going to close the public comments, open it up to the commission for their comments. Commissioner Dells, you want to jump in?
So again, thanks to everybody. Since you all have been here for the first time and observed the alchemy of design review, I'll kind of explain a little bit of background on where I'm starting on this one. And in this case, views and privacy are less of a concern. And you've already made the point that you are not on 4,000 square foot lots, and to the contrary, all these lots are generous. The neighborhood is more generous in terms of lot size in general. So I don't have concerns about the tunneling effect, which was mentioned quite a bit, because I don't think we're creating a tunneling effect. I don't think there's significant privacy concerns for the east neighbor, because it's a bathroom, and I think they can do an opaque glass in there if they want, if we want. I don't know if that was a condition already? It's already there. And to the north neighbor, I didn't see privacy concerns. From a view standpoint, I didn't see a view being obstructed from the north, and the view that I did see that could get obstructed from the east neighbor, I have to stick my head out the window and careen my neck around. So for me, that doesn't raise to the level of a significant view that is being blocked. So a lot of the rationale that you may have heard from me on other cases, in this case, doesn't apply for me. This is it is on the property line, and it doesn't, that's irrefutable, it's on the property line, but it doesn't have the same negative effects.
The setback.
It's on the setback, thank you. Yeah, close to the property line. So I think I'm okay with all that. In terms of the color and the roof, as these guys know, I don't really have strong opinions on color or roof, so I'm going to kind of go with their direction. And agreeable gray, I mean, I'm an agreeable gray, so I'm probably going to like that a little bit. And I tend to be okay with metal roofs, just for fire safety and insurance reasons. But on the other hand, if my colleagues really want to push on the color and on the roof, I'll go along with them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dels. Commissioner Locke, your comments?
Actually, I don't have too much more to add. Yeah, I think on the roof, I could go either way. On the street right there, they're composite, or, you know, they're definitely not metal, definitely not the tile roofs such as the one behind. So I don't really have a real strong opinion on it, and I don't see that there's any major impacts on the neighbors, although I do appreciate your voicing your comments and letting us look at your views. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Carter-Petkov?
I was thinking about this project, and it looks like the applicant is trying to use the existing foundation, the existing first floor, and just apply a second floor on top. And I think the architect made a great attempt to make the two parts of the house look different. You see the remaining house is horizontal planks. This one is bottom vertical. So there was an attempt to make the house, that portion, the two-story portion of the house, look different. I'm not sure if it worked. I still see that as part of the same house. And I would agree that having a two-story straight walls creates a bulk, and it would be better if we can break it up and have some offset of the second floor. But I understand also people who would like to reuse their foundation and add square footage. That's probably the most cost-efficient way of doing it. I think in our guideline, in the design guideline, we talk about the fact that we want to have the house, the higher portion of the house to be somewhere in the middle, and then you have a lower portions around it. There's some pictures around that. There's some drawings in the design guideline. I think that would be applicable. That would be a way to make the house look less bulkier on the back. So that's the only thing I can say. I really like the design. Otherwise, I think it's a great design. I just would recommend to break up the bulk in the back by having the first floor wider than the second.
So some setback on the second story, is that what you're suggesting? Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna speak first to the concerns of the neighbors. I'm in agreement with Commissioner Dels. I see there are some impacts, but they don't rise to the level of significant. And there isn't a water view here in question. It's a situation where if you look out, you're gonna see, an addition. And as Commissioner Dels pointed out, these are much larger lots. There's much bigger setbacks. We have recommended some obscured glass to mitigate some impacts on lines of sight. So I think that's been dealt with. And the neighbor to the north, I think you can see it, but I don't think they're significant again. Having a house that rises above your ridge line, I mean, that happens a lot, and we have that situation around, but I don't think it's going to significantly change the views or the character of the neighborhood. So I don't think those two objections rise to the level of significance. The design itself, I'm a little uncomfortable with it, I have to admit. I mean, I see what the architect's doing, and I really don't like to get in the way of architects' creativity or vision. So the differentiation in materials, it's interesting. I don't know if it really, for me, it doesn't really succeed as well. But I looked at it a little closer. I mean, there's a gable. It's a hip roof house. There's a gable on the second story, which creates differentiation. I noticed that there is a repetition of 3 windows that seems to happen throughout the design, and I assume that was deliberate. it's a little problematic, but I don't think it's really in our purview or my purview to design this. And I think that those are just some comments I have, but I'm not going to recommend a redesign or anything like that. I think the architect, I believe we have to give some leeway and let architects express their creativity. The client's happy with it, so I don't think there's anything here that rises to the level of providing any other direction for redesign. I looked at the get the resolution up here. Got to get on the right window. Excuse me. Okay, the resolution as per staff. This is concept, so these are concept draft conditions, and they're pretty straightforward. They're asking for material cut sheets. That's for final. This is concept. The roof material, the guidelines say that metal roofs, along with some other ones, are not appropriate in all neighborhoods. Now, this was a guideline that was written in the context of when we weren't so concerned about fires, and obviously fires with our with climate change and the fact that we live in an urban forest, and most of the town is in a severe fire area. We've had to re-examine our love affair with wood roofs. And the insurance company, State Farm, as you have all probably heard, is not going to be writing any new insurance in the whole state because of fire damage. And we could have a real insurance catastrophe here if other providers want to do the same thing. So the reason why we've shifted more to approving metal roofs is not so much from the aesthetics, it's really because of the fire. And so that is one of the reasons why we have been allowing them. And I don't think but as the architect pointed out, we want to see diversity. We don't want to see all the same type of homes. Carmel is about diversity. So I do agree with the architect's presentation that this provides some diversity. So I think that we can support the metal roof. This says,
So the resolution says to identify an alternative.
yeah, and I feel that what's presented works because it's supported by the guidelines for diversity, and it also addresses the fire concerns, which are a real concern. And I think in our new revised guidelines, we're going to have some revised policies regarding, roofs and roof material. So that's pretty much it. So I don't know if one of the other commissioners want to make any modifications or give any other direction. This is concept. This is where we give direction. Or we can accept or we can just make a motion to accept the resolution as per staff. So what are the other commissioners' feelings about this? Mr. Locke?
I move that we accept the recommendation from staff on this, and with the change in the roof and allowing the metal roof.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion made to accept the resolution as per staff with the elimination of the roof material, alternate roof material requirement. Is there any more discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Delves?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes. Thank you. The motion is carried. Okay, the next, this is, I believe, our,
Number 9.
and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong here.
We'll do it after you say it.
Do you want a 40-minute recess before we go?
Oh, come on, we're on a roll.
Okay, our next one is another design study. This is DS 23-036, the Metcalf project. This is a consideration for design study for demolition of an 868 square foot single-story residence and construction of a 1,600 square foot two-story residence and associated site improvements located on Torres Street, 4th, southeast of 4th Avenue. We have staff report, please.
All right, well, thank you, Chair LePage. So the next and final public hearing item is a concept design study for the Metcalf property. So this is a standard 4,000 square foot lot. It's located on Torres, 4 southeast of 4th Avenue. The existing single-story residence is 868 square feet. It was constructed in 1955, and it was deemed ineligible for the historic inventory back in 2022. Maybe I should mention that the applicant is proposing to demolish the existing residence and construct a new 2-story residence with uncovered parking in the front. So with respect to forest character, the city forester did identify a number of trees on and adjacent to the property. The applicant did not identify any trees for removal. However, it is expected, I think, that tree number 8 would need to be removed. We also saw today on our site visit that there may be some limbs interfering with the proposed design. So certainly we'll have the city forester take a look at those, and the applicant will apply for the necessary limb removal permits as needed. With respect to privacy and views, staff did not hear from any of the adjacent neighbors prior to the hearing. So this analysis is just based on staff's observations. The dimensions that you see on this slide were something that staff added based on information in the property files. And so this was an attempt just to kind of see the alignment of windows on the neighboring residence to the south with the proposed design. It does appear that the south neighbor does have a bedroom. There's one bedroom, it has 2 windows and a bathroom that face the project site. These windows somewhat align with the windows in the stairs and the proposed bathroom. With respect to parking and access, just due to the dense tree canopy on and around the property, the applicant is proposing to maintain the driveway in the existing location rather than construct a carport or enclosed garage. The applicant is proposing a parking pad, which the code does allow. However, because the code doesn't allow them in the front setback, the parking pad is proposed to be parallel to the residence. So this does meet the code requirement, even though it's a little bit unconventional and the access appears like it might be a little bit awkward, but this does meet the code requirements. With respect to mass and bulk, staff had some concerns about the massing at the front of the property. So the top left photo shows the single story at the front of the property. Due to the topography, it is taller in the front. It's at the approximate 12-foot maximum plate height. Staff does have some recommendations to try to reduce the perceived mass, which include introducing a water table around the foundation, and the applicant has sketched up a design that shows what that looks like. Staff is also recommending that the applicant reevaluate the plate height for this single-story element to reduce that down, and then possibly, I don't think this is included in the staff report, but another option might be to establish a more horizontal orientation with those west-facing windows instead of vertical. And combined, those elements might help to just reduce that perceived mass at the front of the property where it really is most visible from the public way. With respect to building and roof form, the applicant is proposing a 3 and 12 pitched roof. Staff is recommending that that be increased to 4 and 12 based on the recommendations in the residential design guidelines. The Planning Commission does have the authority to deviate from those guidelines if you feel that the flatter pitch is appropriate for the architectural style being proposed. With respect to finished details, this is concept, so there might be some refinements between now and the final hearing. The applicant had originally proposed a wood roof. It looks like they might be leaning more towards a composition shingle. So we'll kind of fine tune that before the final details. You can see the proposed color palette is very warm, kind of earth tone palette, which is probably a nice change to see. There is a second floor, a very small deck. The applicant is proposing a cable railing. Staff is recommending that that material be changed to wood. And then with respect to site coverage, I don't think there's really anything notable here really to mention. It is a demolition reconstruction, and the new project will meet the site coverage requirements. The project does include one skylight. It's a very small skylight, 2 feet by 2 feet. I believe it's in the upstairs bathroom, not visible from the right-of-way. And the applicant is proposing to install a shade in that skylight. So with that, staff is recommending that the commission adopt a resolution accepting the concept design study. And this is a summary of staff's proposed conditions. So I guess of note, reducing the building mass, condition number 7. Staff is recommending that the plate height be lowered and possibly the finished floor level, also introducing that stone water table, which the applicant seems receptive to. The front west elevation window, staff was recommending to eliminate the window above the tripartite window. The applicant does really like the window configuration, so staff would maybe recommend just a more horizontal orientation of that window. And then also reducing the plate height, which seems a little bit redundant from condition number 7. So 7 and 9 kind of go together. Condition number 10 regarding the 2-story plate height is actually an error. The applicant did make some revisions to the design and the plate height is in conformance. And I neglected to delete that from the resolution, so you can strike condition number 10. And then looking for direction on the roof pitch, and staff would like to see some dimension details on the wood trim as the home is proposed to have some stucco. And with that, I will conclude the presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Are there questions for staff from the commissioners? None. Thank you, Marnie. Okay. The architect, come forward again.
Good evening again, Chair LePage, commissioners, staff. I'll keep my comments pretty quick on this one. I know you've all had a long day and appreciate your attention to this project for a new house on Torres Street for Gary and Nancy Metcalf. They've owned the home for quite a long time. It's been in the family. This is sort of a generational family home for them. And they hired me to look at providing them with a design for a new house. Just too many issues to count with the existing home. So it's not really one that rises to the level of trying to preserve or maintain on the basis of what they want to achieve with the new design. As Marnie pointed out in her staff report, we do have a lot of tree coverage on the lot that really drove a lot of the design decisions that we made. In particular, the clients really love that west-facing window, which is the primary and best source of light for the home, especially in the afternoon because of the dense tree canopy. So the objective there with the facade of the new living room was just to provide as much light as possible without trying to make that appear exceptionally modern or contemporary in terms of the window design. So we used an approach for that front facade that I think is elegant and in scale, and still achieves the functional objective of bringing in a lot of light to that room. That is the one area, again, that Marnie has pointed out, that we've got a slightly taller than conventional plate height. I think the plate heights throughout the house are really in line with the design guidelines. I don't think we're trying to achieve a super tall plate or ridge height anywhere. And in fact, the house is quite a bit below the maximum height limits for this lot. So, but in that, again, that living room, we did just want it to, appear a little bit more, a little bit taller, for the interior space to really stand out from the rest of the house. And I think, in relation to the home that's there now, we're actually bringing down both the floor level and the height of the roof of what's proposed versus what's existing. So again, we feel that that's in keeping with the design guidelines, certainly meet all the requirements of the zoning code. And of course, eager to answer any questions you might have or get your feedback on the design materials proposed so we can move closer to approval. Thank you.
Are there questions for the architect from the commissioners? Don't see any.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I had a question. Wait a minute. But I kind of lost it. What was it? Oh, I wanted to ask you about the special conditions or the draft conditions that staff is recommending, because there's quite a few proposed changes here. Did you have any comments? Specifically, I hope I'm the right one here.
The roof pitch was one.
Yeah, the roof pitch. There was the roof pitch. There was, removing that window above on the front elevation. I guess that's the living room.
And the plate height.
Plate height. You talked about the plate height.
Yeah. So I did provide a letter. In general, my feedback was that the conditions that were proposed were a little bit vague to me, and that they were also a little bit inconsistent with my assessment of the design guidelines and how they relate to this project. So, as far as the roof slope goes, it's a little bit in contradiction to the goal of reducing the mass and bulk of the house to increase the slope of the roof. Stylistically, this house, I think, relates a little bit back to a Craftsman style. It is a two-story house, so it's not entirely consistent with what you think of when you picture a small early 1900s bungalow, but it is inspired by Craftsman design. And I think that one of the signature characteristics of Craftsman is a lower slope roof. So the 3 and 12 to me looks good. It's consistent with what's there now. I'm not, my reading of the design guidelines for roof slope is, basically that taller homes are kept lower to the ground, and that, one-story homes maybe have a slightly steeper pitch so that they sort of all relate, and there's a gradation of building height throughout the neighborhood. I think
So what about the metal cable? The staff is not supportive of the metal cable railing. Are you? Is that something you want to change, or what's your feelings about it?
I think that in general, wood railings, wood deck rails, they just pose a maintenance problem over time. There's a lot of repainting that has to be done. It might be interesting to study another possibly metal railing choice that's not a cable rail. That might be a little bit more consistent with the style. So I'm open to that. And yeah, I think, the comment about the plate heights and the floor level, again, I just think that we've brought down the level of the house from the first submittal on the basis of bringing the house in conformance with the code. I don't think it presents an extremely exaggerated mass from the street or from, the neighbor's view. So, asking for the commission commission to reevaluate those conditions and provide some specific recommendations if they have other thoughts.
Okay, I just wanted to hear your comments specifically about, these
Great.
conditions that are being put forward. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for Adam? Thank you, Adam.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any members of the public that want to address the commission regarding this application? Please come forward.
Commissioner LePage, members of the commission, I am Tim Blomgren. I am property owner at 3rd Northeast Torres at 5th. I've communicated to numerous members of my neighborhood, and they are very supportive of this project. One person said that they had even tried to rent out the place and it was way too small, so the increasing of square footage shows a lot of pragmatism in my candid opinion. I personally like the palette color which ties in perfectly with the Mystic Hollow name of the place, and I think that is in keeping. One of the things that the neighborhood is very sensitive to, and I'm going to preface this with the fact that I am a retired city planner, City of San Francisco, in the fact that construction impacts are not considered significant impacts. I totally get that, but as Marnie knows, I share a driveway with a project that went on for 4 years, and that guy has since sold, and the new owners are still remodeling as we speak. That's their prerogative and their right. But we also have a project down at the southeast corner of Torres and 5th, and we have this project here. And so we really have to be, I think we really need to be careful with construction impacts on the neighborhood, because the summer season's coming, we got Car Week coming, we got PGA coming, and if you notice, there's across the street from the site, there's no parking, because that's where the corporate yard is. So really, when I was talking to Marnie in March, she talked about the idea of staging, these construction. I think that's a very good idea, and that would really help with the neighborhood and their concerns, because there's a lot of people have concerns about the construction impact. Anyway, I think it's a good project, but just watch the construction impacts. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, is there anyone else? I don't see anybody left. I think we tired them all out. Okay, close the public comments, open it up to the commission. Commissioner Allen, you want to jump in there?
Sure. I think this is thoughtful. I am a little bit concerned about the trees. It looked like there were several that were going to need to be cut. Limbs bigger than 4 inches, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. I would like them to relook at the railing. I think that with the design, probably something a little more appropriate. And then very much appreciate the neighbor's comment, and also I was scrolling through here looking, do we have a recommendation for a construction plan?
We typically do that on the
Yeah,
final, so
okay.
I'm sure that'll be in there. And
Okay, yep.
That's the best way that we can mitigate these impacts that the construction projects do make to our neighborhoods. So.
Yeah, and then just love the color, and thank you for picking something that is it looked beautiful to me. So, That's it.
And Commissioner Locke, you want to?
I really have nothing to
Take a turn.
add. No, I have nothing to add, and I appreciate the neighbors' comments. Thank you.
And Commissioner Dels?
Yeah, so I'm going to try to go through the conditions to see if we get some consensus here. And I'll skip the ones that I don't think are. So I think it really starts with the one-story plate height. Well, there's 2, 9 and 10 both address plate height. I don't see a need to change the plate height here. Because I believe the architect explained that thoroughly. Same with the roof pitch. And in fact, because of the trees, your roof pitch selection may be necessary. But I also think it's fine. It's consistent or not inconsistent with the neighborhood. And then metal cable railing. I think I heard my colleague suggest that she'd like to see you revisit that with wood, so I'll go in that same direction. Done.
Okay. Commissioner Petkoff?
I don't have any additional comments.
Nothing to add? Okay. Okay, we've, yeah, I just want to, I really appreciate staff's review of these, and they really go through it. But one thing that, with the pitch, sometimes when we get in these numbers, it kind of limits the diversity of our neighborhoods. And 3 and 12 that was one of the key elements to the Craftsman period. A lot of people don't really understand it. They think it was a 4 and 12, but it was a lower pitch. That was what the promoters of that. My mind's gone right now. The guys, the ones. Yeah, thank you. But that 3 and 12 is really part of that historical character that really kind of, it's a real subtle thing, but it really kind of defines that Craftsman look. So I appreciate staff's looking at it, exactly what it says, but that's once that has to do with our historical character of this community. So that's really all I wanted to say. I'm in agreement with the other comments, and I think it's a nice project. It's for a small little cottage, it's got some just nice little details, and it's very well thought out all the way through. So, a resolution from Commissioner Delves.
I'll keep going. So I move to approve the resolution in our packet with the following changes to conditions, removing condition 7, 9, and 10, and 11. And 15 is fine. So
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the resolution as per staff with the removal of conditions 7, 9, 10, 11, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Delves?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes, the motion is carried. Thank you. And that concludes the public hearings, and we are on to the director's report.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Another good hearing, one little bump in the road, but a good hearing tonight. A lot of conversation.
Nasty little bump.
Yeah. But I have some exciting news. So we have our housing element draft is out on the street. It was out a few days ago. It's very exciting. It represents a ton of work by our staff, our consultant, and our city ad hoc committee. So I want to give some kudos to Marnie and Catherine, who've been doing the lion's share of the work from the staff perspective, our consultant, and of course our ad hoc committee made up of council members Ferlito and Richards. So kudos to them. Piggybacking on that, you have a special meeting tomorrow at 5:30, but not here. It's going to be at Carpenter Hall.
Carpenter Hall, yeah.
Sunset Center. So it's a joint meeting with the city council. We will be discussing that draft housing element that's out there. I'm sure you all have read it 3 times by now, but don't worry, it's not going to be your only chance to give comments. Really, the purpose of tomorrow's meeting is to walk you through the draft element so that you can have the remaining 2.5, 3 weeks of our 30-day community review period to give more comments, and we can answer any questions you have there. It's meant to be more of an informative workshop meeting for the city council, the planning commission, and the community. I know I could see you sweating there, Councilmember Commissioner Locke. Yeah, don't worry. There's still a lot of time for comments. Yeah, you're welcome. I also want to announce exciting news. We did officially make an offer, and it has been accepted, and all of the background checks have been done. We will have a new city forester starting July 16th, Justin Ono, who has actually been sitting in for us as our acting city forester on a contract basis. So Justin will be starting July 16th. He just has a little bit of work he needs to do to close up his current business that he has with his father. So we're excited to welcome Justin here on a permanent basis. So July 16th, it's very exciting. I actually had a little update on construction management plans, which was interesting that it came up tonight. So we are going to, just based on the amount of construction we're starting to see, so if you recall over the last couple of years, we have seen, even though we're coming out of COVID, we have seen the number of building permits and applications actually increase over the last few years. And so what we are starting to see now is that coming to fruition in the form of construction on the street. Some streets having 3, 4, 5 even construction projects either right next to each other or within a couple hundred yards of each other. So with that in mind, we as staff level are going to start including, when we're approving things at a staff level on certain projects, but certainly everything you will see will have a recommended condition of a construction management plan that needs to be submitted prior to building permit being issued for review and approval by the city, meaning the Public Works Department and the Planning Department. So there's going to be a lot of specifics and nuances in there, where materials being stored, hours of operation, the number of vehicles on site and all that. So we are working on developing a standard format for a construction management plan, but as we all know, every site is different. So there's going to be some nuance to each of those.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Are these, so I know obviously they're public records and somebody can ask for a copy of it. Is it possible to maybe put them on the website or something?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and part of the concept we're talking about with the construction management plans is that it will be part of the job site set that's on the job site. So, I mean, there's always a job site set of plans that lives on a site. For those that don't know, that's sort of the Bible for the job site. You go to that for the conditions, you go to that for everything. So we want it to be, it's going to be required to be on the job set. And there may be some key construction management tasks that will be posted on the front of the site. You would make people post their building permit. There may be some key construction management plan things like where materials shall be stored or the number of cars allowed. We haven't worked that out yet, but we wanted to more clearly communicate that not only to the public, but also to our staff. When we go and do inspections, either for building permit inspections or if we get a code compliance call, we want to be able to know quickly what we should be looking for. So we're working on that. You'll start seeing, though, the items coming to you for final details hearing, as the chair pointed out, will have construction management plans included. We could put that very well. We could put that in the concept hearing as well, so that applicants are aware of it. But we'll certainly be coming in the final details hearing.
So someone asked a question today about how long do you have to build your house or to do your project? Is there an answer to that? And will this be part of that?
It's a good question. The answer is you have as long to build your house as you can string together inspections over a 1-year period, basically. So every inspection starts a clock again that most recently was extended to a full year between inspections. So theoretically, however many inspections there are is how many years. It could be a long time.
I've got one behind me as an example.
Yeah, I know. We actually, there's no legal precedent that I'm aware of, or we certainly don't have anything in our code for limiting, how quickly you have to get something done, or even on the flip side of that, forcing someone to start their project. Yes, their permit may expire after they've demoed the site, but we don't have any legal recourse to, unless the site is in disrepair, like when it starts to get gross and overgrown and there's materials, we have property management or property maintenance codes that we can use to alleviate that. But as far as forcing them to work on a certain timeline, they're just stuck with the inspection limits.
And even, I'm sorry, I'll be quick, but even if they get beyond that year, is there any recourse anyway?
Their permit is expired.
Which just makes it worse.
Which just makes it worse. Yeah, and so they need to come back in and, maybe it's a new building code cycle and they have to revise plans. There's a point also where the planning entitlement expires as well. So it is, we work pretty diligently. We work pretty diligently with applicants to try to keep them moving. And there's a lot of projects that go on in the village, and I know it feels like the ones, like we have one that is actually just getting started up again after sitting dormant for a long time. There aren't many of them, but they feel like there's more because they're so impactful in such a place like this. So rest assured, we are trying to move people along within what we're allowed to do under the law, but there's a few that, yeah, they just drag on, unfortunately. Yep. We all know them and we love them. And then the last thing I want to say is another super happy thing is to wish a happy 1-year anniversary to Commissioner Allen. Tonight is her 1-year anniversary as a planning commissioner.
Oh, anniversary? Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, so we want to wish her happy anniversary and
I'm sure you're gonna have a huge celebration.
thank her. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, we don't have any cake or anything for you. I'm sorry.
That was it.
Yeah.
I'll go into the
That was-
lounge,
that was-
grab drinks are on.
So that's all I have for you unless you have any questions for me.
Okay, that's it. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Went pretty quickly for a big agenda.
No, well done.
We got through it. And I tried to get ahead.